Chapter 1137. Although Seven Stars Sect was ranked last previously, its Seven Stars formation was not to be underestimated. It was said to be invincible in a battle of formations. Even the higher-ranked disciples of middle-ranked sects would suffer a little when they encountered the Seven Stars formation when they traveled the martial world. However, it seemed that the residents of Nine Supremes Yunyang had figured out the crux of the Seven Stars formation, whether it was a coincidence or a coincidence. Although the Seven Stars formation sounded like it was about stopping the enemy by remaining still and striking later, it was actually impossible to initiate an attack. Or perhaps, once it initiated an attack, its power would be greatly reduced. He could instruct his disciples to imitate the Seven Stars formation when they encountered it in the future. Hee. Seven Stars sect leader Duan Tianchong's face had already turned the color of a pig's liver. This detestable residence of Nine Supremes, this detestable Yunyang, had actually exposed the sect's biggest weakness to the public. What he did not know was that Yunyang's success this time was largely due to luck. The Nine Supremes formation's Earth Elemental formation pursued extreme defense, so much so that it could not initiate an attack at all. It could only replace offense with defense. Only by defending could one speak of counterattacking. It was true that the thick earth could bear and contain everything, but it would never take the initiative to crush and invade everything. Using this characteristic in the Tao of array formations, the main purpose of the passive defensive array formation was to make all attacks disappear in this vast land. After a while, the laughter around them grew louder and louder, the mockery overflowing. Duan Tianchong hollered coldly, "Seven Stars disciples, attack!" He could not hold it in any longer, ordering his disciples to attack with all their might. Of course, the reason he had issued the order was mostly because the disciples of the residents of Nine Supremes before him were all immature children. How strong could they be? Although the Seven Stars formation was better at attacking than defending, it was not completely useless. What could they do even if they took the initiative to attack? The Seven Stars formation disciples hollered at the same time. Their feet stepped on the precise position, and like 7 stars in a row, they leaped up and charged toward the residents of Nine Supremes. The 9 disciples of the residents of Nine Supremes were still calm, but the tips of their swords were raised slightly. The next moment, the 7 Star Sect's disciples flew into the sky. Their swords crisscrossed, and like snowflakes falling from the sky, they fell down. On the residents of Nine Supremes' side, Sun Mingxiu, who was hosting the battle, shouted, "Take a step back!" The 9 disciples of the residents of Nine Supremes retreated at the same time. In the blink of an eye, they had already retreated 100 feet back. The attacks of the 7 members of the Seven Stars Assembly had all landed where the formation of Nine Supremes had originally been, failing to cause any damage. The 7 disciples of the Seven Stars Assembly of the Seven Star Sect were renowned for many decisive battles. Naturally, none of them was an ordinary person. Although their attack had missed, their formation was not disrupted at all. They charged forward for the second time, and this time, the distance was shorter, not allowing the disciples of the residents of Nine Supremes to avoid the battle again. One step further, the sky is higher and the sea is wider. Sun Mingxiu's voice sounded again. Just as the opponent's feet touched the ground and he was about to leap up again, the residents of Nine Supremes' 9 swords flew out in unison. With a loud bang, the 2 battle formations collided head-on without any fancy tricks. Duan Tianchong's heart skipped a beat, and his face turned pale. As the leader of the Seven Stars Sect, and the Seven Stars Assembly was the sect's ultimate treasure, Duan Tianchong was naturally familiar with the mysteries of this formation. The timing of the residents of Nine Supremes' attack was impeccable. It was the moment when the Seven Stars Assembly took the initiative to attack, the moment when the opponent was at its weakest, and it had hit the vitals. Therefore, the collision had caused the 7 disciples of the Seven Stars Assembly, who had a great advantage in terms of strength, to be pushed back 100 feet. Their eyes were filled with panic, their faces pale, and they did not know what to do. However, this was not what shocked Duan Tianchong the most. What really frightened him was that the 9 disciples of the residents of Nine Supremes, who were obviously weaker, did not move at all. Not even the expression on their faces had changed. All of this showed that the collision had not caused any harm to the disciples of the residents of Nine Supremes. What was going on? The 7 disciples of the Seven Stars Assembly were the 7 core disciples of the Seven Star Sect. Each of their cultivation base had reached the Saint Realm, and their leader was a first-tier pinnacle saint. Even if the opponent had seen through the crux of the Seven Stars Assembly formation, chosen the best time to attack, and hit the most beneficial landing point, forcing the seven-star sect's disciples to retreat, they would still have to bear a certain degree of impact. This was unavoidable. However, the opponent's disciples had not taken even half a step back, and were not injured at all. There was only one explanation for this. The disciples of the residents of Nine Supremes also had a certain level of cultivation base that was either higher or equal to the seven-star sect's disciples. At the very least, they would not be far behind. However, this knowledge was undoubtedly extremely shocking. How could the residents of Nine Supremes, a sect that had just been established for less than a year, have disciples with such cultivation bases? What was more, all 9 of them were like this. No, there was another possibility. An even more horrifying thought rose in Duan Tianchong's mind. Could it be that the residents of Nine Supreme's 9-member formation was an exquisite formation that he had never seen before? Its defense was so strong that it could withstand the impact of the 7 Stars Assembly? What should he do then? After all, the reality was right before his eyes. Against the residents of Nine Supreme's defense, the 7 Stars Assembly was obviously useless. The 7 Stars sect's disciples who were present also noticed the situation and retreated immediately, getting into formation again. This time, they dared not take the initiative to attack. That wave of recoil earlier had already caused the 7 disciples to feel a lingering fear in their hearts. As the ones who were directly affected, they felt it the most. Moreover, Duan Tianchong, who was an outsider, could not compare to them. In their perception, a large portion of that recoil was obviously an unusually familiar power that originated from themselves. In other words, the residents of Nine Supremes' formation was unimaginably exquisite. Other than concentrating the strength of the 9 disciples in one spot, it could also increase it by a few times. What was even more ridiculous was that the formation had converted all the disciples' strength into the purest form of defense. As a result, when the enemy's attack failed, they would be injured by their own strength. It was like charging at a tall mountain with all one's strength, but before the mountain crumbled, one would have to bear a considerable amount of counterforce. Furthermore, the formation of the residents of Nine Supremes did not rely on its own strong defensive power to withstand the opponent's powerful attack. Instead, it deflected the incoming force bit by bit, from the first person to the 9th person. Each person did not suffer much of the force, and everything was within its bearable range. Of course, it could remain unscathed without moving half a step. At least, in terms of the attack launched by the 7 Stars Assembly formation, it was not a test for the Nine Supremes' Earth Element formation. Don't move! The 7 Stars sect's eldest disciple reminded urgently, seize the time to recover your cultivation base. He clearly realized that in the collision just now, including himself, all the senior and junior brothers who had participated in the battle had suffered varying degrees of injuries. That was the most concentrated attack from the 7 of them, the combined force of the formation. In the end, it was the 7 of them who bore the majority of the force, especially when they had yet to stabilize their footing and could not release the force. Although the injury was not fatal, it affected their combat strength. Yes, eldest senior brother. The people of 7 Star Sect did not move again, but the people of residents of Nine Supremes did. Following Sun Mingxiu's order, the residents of Nine Supremes' formation changed abruptly. 3 men flew into the air together, and after the first 3 men took to the air, another 3 men took to the air and advanced side by side under the feet of the first 3 men. In the end, the 3 of them did not stay idle either. They chose to charge directly from the ground. The 9 people of residents of Nine Supremes formed a 3-tiered platform and attacked with great force. In just a flash, they had already arrived in front of the 7 Stars Assembly formation. At the highest and center position of the 3-tiered platform was the little girl who was as beautiful as a pearl. Her white robe was fluttering in the wind, and her pretty face was cold. She was the first to swing her sword, and the sword energy suddenly spat out 100 feet long as it slashed across the air. At the same time she cried out, 3 flowers bloom. Bai Yexing, who was in the middle tier, and Hu Xiaofan, who was below, also struck out at the same time. The 3 sword beams charged at the 7 Stars formation. Although only 3 of them attacked and the other 6 did not draw their swords, the 9 of them were actually a whole now. The 3 at the top were stepping on the shoulders of the 3 at the bottom, while the 2 at the left and right had their hands on Yun Xiuxin, who was in the middle. It was the same below, but the core members had been replaced by Bai Yexing and Hu Xiaofan. 9 people, 3 steps, but every movement, even the look in their eyes, they all seemed to be the same person. From low to high, it came pressing down. Fall! This morning, His relatives and friends all came over for a gathering. He didn't drink. At night at his house, the old man said that the two of them should have a drink. I said you should drink less. If you feel drunk, then don't drink anymore. The old master agreed. After 2.5 cups, the old man wasn't drunk, but I was. How shameful. I can't even drink an old man who's almost 70. Sigh. Today is also Beauty Z Nua's birthday. She just told me, I share the same birthday as your father. What should you call me? He was furious on the spot. I'm calling you a dumbass. Dumbass. Happy birthday. Amp, GT. Chapter 1138. Fall. It was still Sun Mingxiu's voice. Although Sun Mingxiu was not the attacking point of the formation like Yun Xiuxin and the other two, he was the core of the formation. Only someone as calm and determined as Sun Mingxiu could see through the opponent's flaws and determine the right time to attack. As soon as Yun Xiuxin and the other two attacked together, the 6 people in the sky immediately fell toward the 7 stars battle formation in a straight line. Well, they did not fall but fall. Because their feet were still on the shoulders of their fellow disciples, the 3 of them fell straight down as if they were one. At the same time, the vast sword light also soared tenfold at this moment. This time, it was the only way of attack of the residents of 9 Supreme's Earth Element formation. Overturn, destroy, sink into the world, and sink endlessly. 3 unprecedentedly powerful sword lights formed a triangular formation from top to bottom and exploded in the 7 stars battle formation. The 7 star sect disciples roared at the same time, "Don't mess up the formation!" They raised their swords at the same time, trying to turn the tide. They were quite confident in the defensive performance of their 7 stars battle formation. Unfortunately, it was too late. There were too many reasons for their defeat, so many that they could not turn the tide. 3 streaks of sword radiance suddenly exploded in the formation, and countless streaks of sword radiance shot out in all directions with a boom. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A series of screams rang out. Each of the 7 star sect disciples had more or less many bloody holes on their bodies. At this point, the 7 stars battle formation had completely fallen apart. The formation could not form, and it was difficult to gather the 7 stars. Scatter! Sun Mingxiu shouted again. 9 people spun in the air, sped to 9 different directions, and then scattered. At this moment, Sun Mingxiu alone moved forward and grabbed the core position of the 7 stars battle formation. Taking advantage of the subtle moment when the opponent was suddenly attacked and the formation was no longer in control, he swung his sword decisively. This sword was specially used to target the lower 3 paths. It was basically a horizontal slash close to the ankles. This attack was also a necessary move in Sun Mingxiu's strategy. Just now, Yun Xiuxin and the other two had attacked the 7 stars condensation with all their might. Although they had gained a lot, they had also consumed a lot of energy. Therefore, the task of further disrupting the enemy's formation fell to Sun Mingxiu, whose cultivation base was only below Yun Xiuxin and the other two. Although the 7 star sect's disciples were startled by this sudden sword attack, they didn't panic. They simultaneously leaped up to evade, and then simultaneously thrust out their 7 swords, intending to kill Sun Mingxiu. However, the moment these 7 people leaped up, their blood, like a waterfall, flowed down from the sky. It was clear that Sun Mingxiu's sword was meant to further disrupt the remaining connection of the 7 stars formation. While the 7 stars formation's effectiveness was reduced, the side effects of suppressing their injuries also followed, causing their injuries to worsen. Gather! Sun Mingxiu's sword attack had forced all the enemies to stand up, but he did not follow up with another attack. Instead, he circled his sword around his body and focused on guarding. At the same time, with another cry, Yun Xiuxin and the other 7 suddenly arrived from 8 directions. They were as fast as lightning, even faster than the 7 star sect's sword light. Not only were they charging forward, but there was also a strong suction force at the center where Sun Mingxiu was, pulling the 8 people to him almost instantly. Just as the 7 star sect's disciples' counterattack sword light was about to arrive, the 9 people from Residence of 9 Supremes gathered in one spot again. This time, it was Sun Mingxiu, who was guarding the center with 8 swords, who had unleashed his defensive move to the maximum. Then, the counterattack sword light from the 7 star sect's disciples fully unleashed the power contained in the defensive sword. At the same time, the 9 people from Residence of 9 Supremes struck out at the same time. All of a sudden, a brilliant sword light appeared, its brilliance even brighter than the sudden explosion of the sun in the sky. Boom! On the high platform, Pu Deshuang's face was as black as the bottom of a pot as he murmured, "Seven Stars sect has lost." Yes, this time, there was no need for Pu Deshuang to announce it. Everyone could see it. In the face of such a powerful sword light, the Seven Star sect's disciples were like weak moths that plunged into the raging fire. All of them disappeared in the air, and it seemed that in the end, not even a scrap of flesh and bone was left behind. On the stand, Duan Tianchong closed his eyes and heaved a long sigh. He had not lost this battle unjustly. The power contained in the defensive sword had reached the level of a Saint King's full-force strike when the 9 disciples gathered their strength at the last moment. In the face of such a strike, how could the 7 disciples, whose cultivation base was only at the peak of first-tier Saint realm, resist it? Moreover, the 7 disciples were already seriously injured, and the 7 stars formation had dissipated. Their effort to strike out with the sword was futile, and instead, they triggered the most powerful counterattack. It was not surprising that they ended up like this. Residents of 9 Supremes wins the 3rd match, the match of formations. With Pu Deshuang's announcement, the 7 disciples of 7 Stars sect came back to life a moment later. However, when they looked at the 9 disciples of residents of 9 Supremes again, each of them had a look of trepidation on their faces at the same time. The mighty power of the last strike was clearly the opening of the gates of hell. It was too terrifying. It was too terrifying. At this moment, Pu Deshuang's face was so dark that he almost looked like a human. Looking at Pu Deshuang's face from the side, Hua Yunfeng felt extremely pleased. Suddenly, he remembered something. Hey, Pu Deshuang's mood now should be the same as mine when I lost the next few matches. And those 2 bastards must be feeling the same as mine at that moment, extremely pleased. F***CK. Those 2 bastards usually call me Big Brother, but how dare they laugh at me like this in their hearts? I must get even with them when I get back. Although my current gambling capital was lent to me by them, kindness is kindness, and hatred is hatred. That's a different matter. I'll have to drag it out for at least another 3 to 7 years before I return the gambling capital to them. Brother Pu, how is my brother feeling at the moment? Hua Yunfeng asked with a smile, his expression extremely despicable. He knew that he should not provoke Pu Deshuang at this moment, but he could not help but blurt out the provocative words, unable to restrain the despicable impulse in his heart. My mood at the moment. Pu Deshuang closed his eyes and suddenly heaved a long sigh. It's as uncomfortable as eating sh*t, especially when this sh*t is yours. Hua Yunfeng burst out laughing. His laughter sounded like a pig's squeal, very harsh to the ears. The other 2 deacons looked at Hua Yunfeng fiercely as if they were looking at the enemy who had killed their father and taken away their wife. If looks could kill, Hua Yunfeng would have been dead more than 100,000 times by now. This old bastard, Hua Yunfeng, is really despicable. Chapter 1139. It had nothing to do with us, but you provoked us like a mad dog. In the end, we also bet 500 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jade each. If we lost in the end, each of us would have to pay him 3,000 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jade. 3,000 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jade. Both men's hearts twitched at the thought of this number. Hua Yunfeng. One of them gritted his teeth. You're inhuman. You're a beast, an inhumane beast. Hua Yunfeng chuckled and said, Luck, it's just luck. Whether you're a man or a beast, as long as you're lucky. Ha ha ha. He could not hold back the joy in his heart and burst out laughing. He was so overjoyed that he did not even take it seriously when he was scolded as a beast in front of his face. The 3 of them fixed their eyes on him at the same time. In just a moment, the hatred in their eyes made Hua Yunfeng, who was an experienced martial artist, shudder with fear. His joy instantly faded and was replaced by fear and panic. Ahem. Hua Yunfeng hurriedly stopped laughing and said embarrassedly, The winner hasn't been decided yet. So far, residents of 9 Supremes has only won 2 matches and tied 1, and they still have chances to win 2 more matches. Perhaps, residents of 9 Supremes is only strong in the beginning, but not in the later stages. Pu Deshuang's face darkened as he said, Given your temperament and character, do you think you'll give us any leeway to make a comeback with such a sharp eye? Hua Yunfeng blinked and said, Brother Pu, We've been brothers for thousands of years. How can you doubt me like this? You can ask around. Do you think I'm that kind of person? When I suggested the bet, I didn't forbid you from betting on Residents of 9 Supremes, did I? Besides, I didn't expect that Residents of 9 Supremes would actually, ha ha ha. Towards the end, he really couldn't hold it in any longer and laughed again. His laughter was so degrading that it really was annoying and irreconcilable. Pu Deshuang spat out a mouthful of blood and said with a dark face, Hui Yunfeng, when this matter is over, I've decided to make a breakthrough in my realm. I want you to spar with me in the 10,000 arena. We're brothers, and we've been friends for thousands of years. You won't refuse my request, will you? Hua Yunfeng, Hua Daliang, the two of us are also in urgent need of breakthroughs, so we shouldn't bother two hosts. You should do it too. You won't refuse a friend's request, will you? Hua Yunfeng's laughter came to an abrupt halt. His face turned ghastly pale as he said in horror, I have something to do. Just tell me if you're going to help or not. Pu Deshuang glared at him with a black face. The corners of Hua Yunfeng's mouth twitched. He looked at the three people in front of him and suddenly said, 100 yuan. 100 yuan per person. The three of them sneered at the same time. 200 yuan per person. He continued to sneer coldly, and his expression became even colder. 500 yuan per person. Any more, and I'd rather fight you in the 10,000 arena. I'd rather be beaten up by you for a month. Hua Yunfeng gnashed his teeth, his heart bleeding as he made his final offer. You've lost your mind. Even if you don't want a single piece of spirit jade now and give it all to us, including your own, we won't accept it. Pu Deshuang's eyes were like copper bells. The only thing I want now is to beat you for a month and fulfill your good name as a brother. I want you to be truly famous in the world and live up to your name. Hua Yunfeng said with a bitter face, Brother Pu, please reconsider. Pu Deshuang gritted his teeth and said word by word, I, Pu Deshuang, have always regarded money as dirt. Puff. Before he could finish, he spat out another mouthful of blood out of heartache. In any case, I'm going to beat you to death. The spirit jades I lose to you can be considered the money you earned from selling your life. Hua Yunfeng was dumbfounded, and a chill ran down his spine. This time, it seems I've gone too far. The 10,000 arena was a specially designed arena for executives to temper themselves when they made a breakthrough in their realms. Usually, they would invite their best friends to accompany them and exert pressure on them to make a breakthrough. The effect was almost the same as the real thing, but there was no real danger. But if only one person was invited, then the invited person would have to live in purgatory for a month. This was because the person in the middle of a breakthrough would have no consciousness at all and would only fight based on instinct and intuition. Moreover, he would be in a state of epiphany, so his fighting strength would be almost completely different from usual. He would be able to exert at least 30% of his own power, and even if his strength was about the same, he would be suppressed by his opponent for a month. Moreover, he would have to suffer the most severe beating during the final breakthrough. Hua Yunfeng thought for a long time before he finally made up his mind. He gritted his teeth and stamped his foot. Fine. I'll agree to all of them. It's just 1 month for each person, right? I can collect more than 10,000 top-grade spirit jades if I get beaten up for 3 months. Damn it, even the great commander doesn't have that kind of wealth. I'll do it. This was a classic case of risking one's life over wealth. The three of them froze at the same time when they heard this. Seeing that Hua Yunfeng was terrified, the three of them originally wanted to use this opportunity to scare him and make him pay off most of his gambling debts. Previously, when he said that he wouldn't want anything even if he gave them to them, it was just a matter of loyalty at first, and then it was a complete threat. As long as Hua Yunfeng said, I'll give each of you 3. I don't need to give each of you 3,000, just 2,000 will do. Even if it was 1,500, they would immediately give up and say, it's a deal. However, this guy didn't play by the rules at all. He would rather be trampled on for 3 months than give up this windfall. This result completely stunned Pu Deshuang and the other two. Damn it! What's the point of me beating you for a month? Can I beat you for a month? Can I beat you back my top-grade spirit jades? For a moment, the three of them fell into an extremely gloomy atmosphere. But even though they were gloomy, they still had to do what they had to do. On the other side, Duan Tianchong went up to the stage with a dark face. His boastful words earlier were still ringing in their ears. He said that he was confident that he would win only 3 matches, but in the end, he lost 2 of the 3 matches and drew 1. Was he confident that he would win? It was obvious that he was not. Moreover, this result also meant that in the original 5 matches, even if the 7-star sect won the remaining 2 matches, it would still be a draw. Pu Deshuang had just said that his mood was as if he had eaten shit, but in fact, Duan Tianchong's mood was as if he had eaten shit. Pu Deshuang had lost, but he only lost spiritual jades. However, 7-star sect had lost and would be knocked down to the middle grade. Moreover, judging from the power of residents of 9 supremes, the gap between them would only be greater after 3 years. In other words, it would be difficult for 7-star sect to return to the ranks of middle-grade celestial luck banners for a long time. Such a blow was not small. Sect leader Duan. Pu Deshuang looked at Duan Tianchong as if he was looking at his father's murderer. He gritted his teeth and said, "Sect leader Duan, a middle-grade Tianyun sect has actually been defeated in the challenge of a lower-grade sect. You've set a precedent for our Sacred Heart Palace in the past 13,000 years. Should I congratulate you for becoming the chief disciple of a lower-grade celestial luck banner?" Chapter 1140. Duan Tianchong's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. The battle is not over. We still have a chance. Pu Deshuang snorted. What chance do we have? Do you dare to fight with their sect leader? Duan Tianchong's expression darkened further, so much so that it was almost glowing. Pu Deshuang's words were extremely harsh. Yun Yang, as the sect leader, had killed the top expert on his side. How could he dare to challenge the other party to a supreme leader battle? We still have the battle of disciples and the battle of freedom. Duan Tianchong gritted his teeth. The 4th round, the disciple battle. The disciples of the residents of 9 supremes are obviously more than a level lower than the 7-star sect. We will definitely not lose this battle. As soon as he said this, Hua Yunfeng, who was at the side, immediately exclaimed. His shoulders suddenly shook, and his face instantly bloomed like a flower. His sudden laughter immediately attracted everyone's attention. Hua Yunfeng hastily turned around and pinched his thigh hard until the root of his thigh was bruised. Only then did he manage to suppress his joyful and celebratory mood. Pu Deshuang turned his head suspiciously and saw Hua Yunfeng's smiling face. "Brother Hua, what do you think?" Hua Yunfeng said indifferently, "It's just a deathbed struggle. It's all futile and meaningless. I can almost say with certainty that the 7-star sect's defeat is inevitable. No matter who it is, they will lose without a doubt." Duan Tianchong's face was instantly filled with rage, and his eyes were filled with a murderous glint. Pu Deshuang said solemnly, "Sect Master Duan, you have to think it through. If you lose this fight, your 7-star sect won't have any leeway." Duan Tianchong gritted his teeth. "We definitely won't lose the disciple battle." Pu Deshuang said, "In that case, I will announce it." Duan Tian cupped his hands and left with a dark expression. The 4th match, the disciple battle. Pu Deshuang announced loudly. In his view, this was indeed a chance for the 7-star sect to make a comeback. It was true that the disciples of the residents of 9 supremes were gifted and intelligent, but it was also a fact that they were young and their cultivation base was lacking. If he was 2 to 3 cultivation realms higher than the other party, he might still have lost. At least in Pu Deshuang's view, the 7-star sect could only commit collective suicide. This time, the 7-star sect sent out their sect leader disciple. He was also the leader of the 7 Stars Confluence team. Currently, he was already at the pinnacle of the 1st stage Saint Realm. His name is Zong Qingji. At this moment, he held a long sword in his hand and walked out with a solemn expression. The honor and disgrace of the sect, the foundation of 1,000 years, at this moment, all of it was on their shoulders. The pressure in Zong Qingji's heart was undoubtedly huge. "I won't lose. I definitely won't lose." Zong Qingji gritted his teeth and secretly said to himself. On residents of 9 Supreme's side, Yun Xiuxin's clear voice rang out. "Master, I request a fight." Yun Yang frowned as if he could not make up his mind. Yun Xiuxin said aloud. "I know I'm no match for that senior brother, but as the leader of all the disciples, how can I not take the lead in this battle? Especially when I have my mystical beast to assist me. There is still a glimmer of hope in this battle." If I can't do it, then the other junior brothers and sisters. I'm afraid. Yun Yang's expression was solemn as he said, Very well, you shall fight then. Yun Xiuxin's clear voice rang out from afar. Lord Steward, I have tamed mystical beasts to assist me. Can I fight together with them? This was the rule of yes. Yun Xiuxin's question was immediately answered with an affirmative answer, yes. The others were also smiling. How strong could a Xian beast tamed by a teenage girl like you be? Even if the human and the beast worked together and fought side by side, it would still be useless. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Yun Xiuxin, dressed in white and holding a small snow-white pom-pom in her arms, walked out with her head held high. As she walked out, she said softly, Bye-bye, don't be afraid later. Come with me and fight the bad guys. In her arms, everyone looked over and saw a small, fist-sized kitten in her arms with a satisfied look on its face. It purred contentedly, and when it heard the little lass's words, it actually opened its mouth and meowed in a childish voice. Almost all the people present felt dizzy at the same time. F***CK. We thought you were going to bring some mighty mystical beast to fight. So, it's just a toy. What are you doing? The reason why it was almost was because Hua Yunfeng was also in the grandstand. When he saw the scene, he looked confident. He knew very well what the truth of the little furball was. If it had not been for the little furball, residents of 9 Supremes might not have been able to advance to the middle-class celestial luck banner so smoothly. It was indeed fate and luck. Pu Deshuang put one hand on his forehead and said with a wry smile, I thought the little girl would bring some kind of magical mystical beast after claiming that she had a mystical beast to assist her and that there was a slim chance of survival. I didn't expect it to be a cute creature. In fact, it makes sense when I think about it. Don't all little girls like cute creatures? But the higher-ups of residents of 9 Supremes are too irresponsible. How could they be so childish at such a critical moment? They don't even try to dissuade her. They are really too young. Hee hee. Maybe residents of 9 Supremes has given up. Hua Yunfeng squinted and smiled. Cute creature? I can guarantee that this adorable thing will give you a big surprise, my friend. I was thinking the same thing as you, old friend. Clad in white, Yun Xiuxin strode into the battlefield with the kitten in her arms, her fair skin and jade-like bones. However, it did not look like she was going to the battlefield, but a little girl taking her pet for an outing. On the 7-star sect side, everyone was beaming with joy, thinking that victory was in their grasp. Even Duan Tianchong, the sect leader, was thinking that residents of 9 Supremes must have given up this battle, and the little girl would at most just go through the motions. Perhaps, she would admit defeat as soon as the battle began. In the arena, Zhong Qingji's tense nerves could not help but relax in the face of such a situation. After the previous battle, Zhong Qingji had a very high opinion of Yun Xiuxin, but her real strength was still far inferior to his. Even if she attacked herself, she might not be able to do anything to him. After all, the gap between them was not just a little bit, but a whole level. The gap between them could be said to be as wide as heaven and earth. But now, the little girl was behaving like a cute creature, and with the kitten in her arms, she was even more adorable. In the face of such an opponent, Zhong Qingji had a subtle feeling that it was an unfair victory. Junior sister Yun, please. Zhong Qingji cupped his fist politely. Senior brother Zhong, please, Yun Xiuxin said softly. The scene made the 7-star sex people even happier. On the side of residents of 9 Supremes, the higher-ups looked as calm as a mountain, but the juniors were all speechless. Eldest senior sister. You've overdone your act. Genius 1 second to remember this website's address. Mobile version, M. Chapter 1141. Yun Xiuxin was the leader of the first-generation disciples of residents of 9 Supremes, and she had always regarded herself as the eldest senior sister. Other than behaving like a little girl in front of Yunyang and other masters, this little girl was even tougher than a tough girl in front of others. But now, she was so gentle in the battle, which was shocking. Hu Xiaofan even muttered again and again, Damn, it's over, it's over. This acting isn't good. It's too fake. I'm getting goosebumps all over. Pardon me. On the other side, Zhong Qingji held his sword in his hand and was about to soar into the air. Obviously, he wanted to finish this battle as soon as possible. Yun Xiuxin took a step back and put the kitten in her arms on the ground. Bye-bye, Remember to scratch him when the fight begins, she said softly. Meow meow. If you can't handle it, run back. Don't be careless. You have to give it your all. Meow. I'm so afraid that I'll hurt you. Meow. Zhong Qingji didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Junior sister Yun, you mean, you don't plan to fight me personally? Yun Xiaoxin took a step back and said, Yes, isn't it enough for me to let my Bai fight you? Zhong Qingji was speechless. What? This little thing? Yeah. Yun Xiaoxin smiled cutely and said, If even Bai loses, I'll give it to him. If you can defeat Bai, I'll admit defeat and keep my promise. Whitey raised its head and meowed proudly, raising its tiny front paw and waving at Yun Xiaoxin in a very human-like manner. You know, right? Don't worry, just go and watch the show. Therefore, Yun Xiaoxin retreated 100 feet back with ease. Zhong Qingji had a helpless expression on his face. Looking at the adorable little creature squatting on the ground in front of him, a sense of absurdity rose in his heart. I'm going to fight with this little guy. Sigh. With a clang, the long sword suddenly let out a soft cry. Although there was nothing he could do, he still had to fight. Even though he knew that the residents of 9 Supremes had decided to give up, he still had to win beautifully under the watchful eyes of the public. Amidst the sword flowers, a loud shout could be heard. I'm coming to attack. He leaped down and rushed down. Yes, it was to charge down. That cute little thing was too small. It was barely at the height of his ankle. He had to bend down to hit it. At this moment, Zhong Qingji felt that he was too cold-blooded and too tyrannical. He actually dared to lay his hands on such a cute little thing. He would definitely not be popular with girls in the future. The next moment, Whitey let out a meow. It was soft and cute, but its meow was enough to melt everyone's heart. However, when everyone in the spectator stands heard this, they all let out a collective gasp of surprise. This was because, at the same time that the little white thing let out a soft moan, it suddenly became bigger. In the blink of an eye, it had become a colossus that was at least 100 feet tall. Its 4 claws were like pillars supporting the sky. It opened its bloody mouth and bit down on Zhong Qingji, who was charging towards it. Yes. The little fellow had opened its mouth in advance before its body enlarged. Since Zhong Qingji and Whitey were already very close to each other, after its enlargement, the little fellow's mouth lifted a few feet above the ground. Its mouth was wider than the city gate, so swallowing Zhong Qingji into its mouth was only a matter of course. Its sharp teeth closed up and down. Puff! Blood gushed out. At this moment, there was only cold-bloodedness and brutality. Who knew if there would still be little girls who would like this cute thing? Zhong Qingji from the 7-star sect was dead. He died a clean death. With one bite, he was bitten into 2. Then, Whitey spat out the corpse from its mouth in disgust. Meow. It was so stinky. Including Pu Deshuang and all the sects that ranked in the top few middle-class celestial luck banners. Everyone's mouth fell open, and their eyes widened as if they had seen a ghost. After a long time, a cracking sound could be heard. That was the sound of dislocated jaws. What the? That Daluo sect's junior sister Yu's eyes widened. What? What's going on? It seems like it directly rushed into the giant beast's mouth and was eaten? Is he committing suicide or something? I'm waiting to see them fight. My goodness, such a cute little thing, but its true form is actually such a huge beast. Judging from the pressure it emitted just now, this mystical beast is at least a Saint King level. Just now, I was so scared that my little heart almost exploded. Such a cute little kitten, I should have held it in my arms and played with it, but it was treated like that. The next moment, when it opened its mouth, its fangs were thicker than my waist. When it closed its mouth, my God. At this moment, Duan Tianchong from the 7-star sect felt that the sky had turned dark. At that moment, the world spun around him, making him feel hopeless. He sat on his seat in a daze, and everything in front of him turned black and white. Even Zhong Qingji returned to his original state. When he came in front of him, Duan Tianchong was still in a daze, and his body could not help but continuously tremble. Lost. Finished. Completely finished. The foundation passed down from generation to generation, the glory and treatment of thousands of years of middle-rank celestial luck banner, were all gone. He wanted to curse, he wanted to go crazy, but he knew that all these useless actions would be of no use. Besides, he couldn't blame his own disciple for this defeat. At present, he was only a saint-level expert. Moreover, he was only a first-grade saint. It was simply too difficult for him to deal with that Saint-King-level mystical beast. Even if he self-detonated, he might not be able to hurt the opponent, not to mention the opponent had pretended to sneak attack from the beginning. How could he not be defeated? He deserved to be defeated. Like their sect leader, the entire seven-star sect looked as if they had lost their parents. On the high platform, Pu Deshuang and the other two people's complexions were not much better than the seven-star sect's people. Their faces were deathly pale, as if they had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Their whole body trembled like a sieve. We've lost. This damned seven-star sect has lost just like that. It doesn't matter if you've lost, but the total of 10,000 supreme-grade spiritual jades that we've lost have also been lost. Those are supreme-grade spiritual jades. They're supreme-grade spiritual jades that even upper-class sects don't have and rarely seen. They're almost supreme-grade treasures that only the Sacred Heart Palace has, and they're not open to the public at all. Only people above the level of deacon can enjoy them. Good stuff. Priceless treasures. We've lost 10,000 at once. A whole 10,000. Oh, let me die. On the side, Hui Yunfeng's eyes were wide and his mouth was agape. As if he was talking in a dream, he said, F***ck me, this is too unexpected. Too unexpected. Residents of 9 Supremes actually won, and won so cleanly. 3 wins and 1 draw in 4 matches. This is a little too much. I was prepared to lose. This happiness came too suddenly. Chapter 1142. Pu Deshuang glanced at him weakly. What AF** King good show you are putting on? Why are you still putting on an act now? Who are you putting on an act for? When I cripple you, I'll sell you to the troupe without a second thought. At least in a few days, a famous actor will be born. But now, he could not even muster up the energy to be angry with him. A loss was a loss. No matter how much he cursed, it was still too late. He had lost in the end. Pu Deshuang laughed bitterly and shouted, Residents of 9 Supremes has won the challenge to the middle-class celestial luck banner. Sect leader Yun Yang, you've tied in the second match. It's not a complete victory, so you're not qualified to challenge a higher-ranked sect. We'll stop here for the time being. Do you believe me? Thank you, Deacon Lord. It's already a pleasant surprise for us to be able to ascend to the middle class. It's enough for us. How dare we ask for more? Congratulations to residents of 9 Supremes for ascending to the middle class. Pu Deshuang said loudly. Congratulations to residents of 9 Supremes for ascending to the middle class. The other 8 sects said at the same time. At this moment, almost everyone in the residence of 9 Supremes was grinning, including Luo Dajiang, who had just self-detonated. He was grinning widely and laughing heartily. The other demiurge-flawed 10 brothers were also laughing wildly and dancing with joy. They did not have the slightest image to speak of. A sect with a middle-class celestial luck banner. In the past, we were not even qualified to join a sect with a lower-class celestial luck banner and were repeatedly rejected. But now, we've created a middle-class sect that's even higher than the lower class. As they laughed, everyone's eyes turned red. Everyone had the same thought. Everyone thought about their past experiences, and then thought about the glory they had now. In an instant, everyone felt as if a lifetime had passed, as if they had been reborn. However, no one was more excited than Jiang Luo. With a scream, she jumped up and clung to Luo Dajiang's neck. Dajiang. This is great. This is great. You're a middle-class sect now. Wah. Luo Dajiang's eyes were red. Yes, we're a middle-class sect now. A middle-class sect now. Towards the end, he choked with sobs, leaving only a sigh. On the high platform, Pu Deshuang was still talking, but the residents of 9 Supremes had turned a deaf ear to him. At this moment, great joy filled the hearts of everyone, causing them to be extremely excited and unable to restrain themselves. Even though Yun Yang had long been prepared, he was still infected by the joyous atmosphere, feeling inexplicably elated. Pu Deshuang's words were very realistic. 7-star sect, you have lost the qualification to stay here. please leave the spectator stand of the middle-class sects and take your seats at the residence of 9 Supremes. Everyone in the 7-star sect stared at the residence of 9 Supremes, who was celebrating with eyes that were spitting fire. There was only the most deep-rooted hatred in everyone's eyes. The residence of 9 Supremes. The residence of 9 Supremes. Good, good, good. Let's wait and see. 3 years later, we will definitely make a comeback. We will never let you go. With a smile on his face, Hua Yunfeng put away the interspatial ring filled with supreme-grade spirit jades and said complacently, "Brother Pu, can I take these first?" The muscles on Pu Deshuang's face twitched, and a fierce gleam flashed in his eyes. Hua Yunfeng said, "Brother Pu, we are brothers. You still owe me 3,000 spirit jades. Is that correct?" Pu Deshuang looked like he wanted to devour someone. Hua Yunfeng said, "And you two brothers, each of you owes me 2,500 spirit jades. Don't worry about giving them to me. I'm really not in a hurry. I'll pay you a visit when I return to Sacred Heart Palace." Ha ha ha. The two men glared at Hua Yunfeng with inexplicable grief and indignation. Their hands and feet were trembling, and their eyes were glinting fiercely. "Ahem, Brother Pu, I still have official business to deal with, so I have to take the 7-star sect to the lower-class sect first. There are still people waiting to challenge the 7-star sect to become the chief disciple of the lower-class sect. The 7-star sect has little hope of making a comeback in 3 years, and the Golden Cauldron sect waiting to be challenged over there is also a tough opponent." Hua Yunfeng laughed. He seemed to feel a lot lighter. Without waiting for Pu Deshuang's reply, he flew away as light as a feather. At this moment, Hua Yunfeng felt that today was the best day in his life. Looking at Hua Yunfeng's back, the 3 men behind him were still glaring at him. They wanted to skin him alive, but they could not vent the anger in their hearts. "Don't stop me, big brother. When I get back, I'll definitely beat Hua Yunfeng until his mother can't recognize him." "I won't stop you. Just remember to tell me before you do it, and I'll help you." Pu Deshuang's qi and blood were surging in his heart. He circulated his qi several times before he managed to suppress it and roared, "Residents of 9 Supremes, please come to the middle-class grandstand and take your seats." This was the last ceremony, and it was also one that must be completed. A large green flag suddenly rose from a grandstand at the back of the arena. It was the grandstand that originally belonged to the 7-star sect. The green celestial luck flag rose 1,000 feet into the air, and suddenly, its green brilliance shone brightly, illuminating the world with a myriad of colors. Everyone in the residence of 9 Supremes was illuminated by the green light. Then, the green celestial luck banner swayed slowly in the air. First, a small green flag emerged from the large banner and fell from the sky like a meteor, burrowing into Yun Yang's body in a flash. Then, a few smaller green flags went into the bodies of Shi Wuchen, Luo Dajiang, Tai Qingcong, and the others. Then, some smaller flags went into the bodies of Yun Xiuxin and the others one by one. When the small green celestial luck flags were distributed and returned to their respective positions, the huge celestial luck flag shook again. Swoosh! Countless shadows of the celestial luck flags shot in the same direction. That was the direction where the residence of 9 Supremes was located. Then, the green celestial luck flag slowly descended, emitting a green light so strong that it could block all the light and surround all the people in the residence of 9 Supremes. At this moment, the whole grandstand was like a large piece of green jade. In the grandstand, Yun Xiuxin and the other disciples were all beaming with joy. Their chests were puffed out, and their eyes and faces were full of pride and contentment. Yun Yang's gentle voice rang out at the right time. "Today, we have made history. The path of glory for the residents of 9 Supremes will begin from now on. I hope all of you will not be arrogant and rash in the future, work hard as before, and don't forget that today's glory is not easy to come by. Don't let down the countless hardships in the past. I will obey Master's teaching. I will never forget it." The green celestial luck banner hovered above the residence of 9 Supremes stand for 2 whole hours. Everyone, including Yun Yang, felt that the meridians in their bodies had been purified by the green light and benefited greatly from it. Everyone seemed to be in high spirits and brimming with health and vigor. Chapter 1143. The eyes of the people in the surrounding stands were full of envy, jealousy, and hatred. The blessing of luck obtained when one ascended the platform for the first time was a benefit that could not be replicated. Only Gan Tianyan and Ping Zhenyue from Phoenix Cry sect were beaming with joy. Luo really has a unique insight. The boy that neither of us thought highly of has now become the third person in the residence of 9 Supremes, a sect with a middle-class celestial luck banner. From now on, his future is promising and limitless. After all, as the number 3 figure of a sect, he was a genuine founding elder. The celestial luck banner's blessing that he enjoyed was not only different from ordinary disciples, but he even had a great advantage over the other senior members who had entered the sect later. Luo Dajiang's aptitude was good to begin with, and after this baptism, his future would be smoother. No one would doubt him anymore. Moreover, Jiang Luo had followed Luo Dajiang up to the residence of 9 Supremes stand. The green light must have helped her out of love and shared this great benefit with her. This result was simply a great opportunity. It couldn't be any better. However, the eyes of Phoenix Cry sect's top disciple, Qi Lai, were fixed on the residence of 9 Supremes grandstand, which was shrouded in green light. Although he could not see through it, what he saw in his heart was still the detestable Luo Dajiang of the past. Luo Dajiang, I'll kill you. After a while, He Shansong, the leader of Daluo sect, looked surprised and puzzled. He turned his head and asked, Lord Deacon, in the past, when one ascended the celestial luck banner for the first time, there would be a baptism. But this process could only last for less than a quarter of an hour at most. Why did the residents of 9 Supremes stay for so long this time? Is there anything wrong with it? Pu Deshuang's weak voice rang out. Nothing is wrong. The situation of the residents of 9 Supremes is completely different from yours, so it naturally deserves this honor. What's the difference? All the people from the sects pricked up their ears. They were all indignant. How is it different? It's nothing more than advancing from the first place of a lower-class celestial luck banner. But isn't that how the last place of a middle-class celestial luck banner came? The ascension of the celestial luck banner and the change of ranking are all done step by step. Pu Deshuang said. As for the residents of 9 Supremes, it has only been less than a year since it was founded. In other words, this is their first expedition to the celestial luck banner. First time. Apart from Ping Zhenyue, the other 7 sect leaders all widened their eyes. He Shansong stammered. Do you mean that, before today, residents of 9 Supremes was not the chief disciple of a lower-class celestial luck banner, and it did not even possess one? Pu Deshuang cheered up and said, That's right, that's exactly what I mean. 4 to 5 days ago, residents of 9 Supremes was not even a lower-class sect, but in these few days, they have advanced 3 times in a day and ascended to the top of the lower-class celestial luck banner, and today, they have leaped to the middle class. They have leaped 10 positions in total. That's why the celestial luck banner has stayed here for such a long time. A whole 2 hours. To be honest, it hasn't been around for a long time. Everyone was dumbfounded. It had only been established for less than a year. It advanced all the way until it reached the middle rank. What did this mean? Well, this was not the point. The point was that the difference between staying here for 2 hours and staying here for a quarter of an hour was like heaven and earth. When the celestial luck banner stayed here for a quarter of an hour, they all had the benefit of having their meridians purified and their meridians slightly loosened. Now that the benefit had stayed here for 2 hours, did it not mean that the people of the residence of 9 Supremes were going to be reborn and reborn? This was simply. All the sect leaders had the same thought at the same time. The future of the residents of 9 Supremes would be unstoppable and limitless. After a while, the green light of the celestial luck banner that shrouded the residents of 9 Supremes gradually began to dissipate. Ping Zhenyue, the leader of the Phoenix Cry sect, stood up abruptly and said, Disciples, follow me to congratulate them. As soon as the leader gave the order, the people of the Phoenix Cry sect naturally stood up together, carrying out strict orders. Only Qi Lai lowered his head and said stubbornly, Master, the residence of 9 Supremes is only a sect that has just been promoted to the middle rank. What right does it have to trouble you to go there personally? We are the second in rank of the middle rank, or perhaps we will be the first in rank of the middle rank soon. It is enough for the disciples to go and greet them. Ping Zhenyue gave him a stern look. Qi Lai, keep your thoughts to yourself. Today, if you lose face for the sect, do you know the consequences? Qi Lai trembled suddenly and said respectfully, Yes. When he looked up, he saw that the leader of the Daluo sect had already walked out with the sect's higher-ups and disciples. With a smile on his face, He floated toward the stand of the residence of 9 Supremes. While the master and disciple were arguing, he had gone to congratulate them first. As he looked around, the other 6 sects had all stood up and walked over without exception. At this moment, Qi Lai's thoughts were completely blank. Was it necessary? Was it necessary to be so grand? Every sect was personally led by a sect leader? This was the first time in my life that I had seen such treatment. How could the residents of 9 Supremes be so good? It was just the momentary luck of a group of rascals. How could it last? As he thought about it, he felt someone beside him pull him. When he looked up, he saw that his leader had already led the group hundreds of feet away. He was looking back at him in disappointment, his eyes cold. Qi Lai took a deep breath and quickly followed, but he felt a myriad of emotions in his heart. For a moment, he did not know what he was thinking. Lost, he followed instinctively. Congratulations, sect leader Yun. You have ascended to the middle rank. The legend has just begun, and it is truly a wonder. He Shansong, the leader of the Daluo sect, smiled amiably. I am He Shansong, the leader of the Daluo sect. This is my uncle master, and the one beside him is my uncle master. This is my senior brother. This is my junior brother, and this is my good-for-nothing disciple. Yun Yang was gentle and elegant as he cupped his fists to greet them one by one. Welcome, sect leader He. The residence of 9 Supremes is honored by your presence, and I am flattered. All of you are seniors. I am new here, so it is only right for me to ask for your guidance. In the days to come, I hope that sect leader He will guide me and guide me. You flatter me, you flatter me. He Shansong laughed. May the Daluo sect and the residents of 9 Supremes be brothers forever, and have friendly relations for generations to come. Yes, sect leader He, you are too polite. I appreciate your kindness. Congratulations, sect leader Yun. Ping Zhanyue walked over. Ping Zhanyue of the Phoenix Cry sect congratulates sect leader Yun. Chapter 1144. Zhang Luo, who was at the back, introduced in a low voice with a happy face. This is my uncle master sect leader. This is my master. This is my uncle master. Yun Yang's face was full of flattery. He took a step forward and bowed. Oh, sect leader Ping is our senior. We should go and greet you, but you've come all the way here. This is very rude of us. Ping Zhinyue and Gan Tianyan's faces beamed like flowers. The residents of 9 Supreme's attitude towards Phoenix Cry sect was obviously different from that of other sections. It seemed that Luo was quite useful. Sect leader Yun, you're too polite. We're all family, so there's no need to be rude. Ping Zhinyue and Gan Tianyan's gazes changed after hearing Yun Yang's words. They looked at Yun Yang and the others with more intimacy. This is our residence of 9 Supreme Second Supreme, Supreme Sword, Shi Wuchen, and this is Da Jiang. Why haven't you come and greet the seniors yet? Yun Yang greeted him with a laugh. Luo Dajiang took a step forward and said, Greetings, sect leader Ping, senior Gan. Greetings. Luo Dajiang had never bowed so many times in his life. Now that he had greeted all the sect leaders of Phoenix Cry sect, there was only joy in his heart. The obstacle between me and Luo is finally gone. Ping Zhinyue stared at Luo Dajiang with a gratified look in her eyes. She looked him up and down and said, Luo has a good eye. Your eyes are as bright as a torch, and you have someone to rely on. Dajiang, I've misjudged you. Dajiang, please don't blame us for being blind and failing to recognize you. This sentence was basically equivalent to an apology for obstructing him previously. Luo Dajiang cleared his throat and said, The sect leader is a senior, and he always looks at the big picture and plans for the juniors he admires. His thoughts are all long-term. Not only is it reasonable, but it is also compassionate. We juniors can only be grateful. I'm really touched and happy, and I don't have any other thoughts. Good. Ping Zhanyue nodded repeatedly, her smile deepening. At this moment, Qi Lai looked at Zhang Luo, who was holding Luo Dajiang's arm with a shy and happy face, and suddenly felt a pain in his heart as if it was cut by a knife. An indescribable unwillingness rushed up to him, and his eyes turned red in an instant. He took a step forward and bellowed, Luo Dajiang, you've found a good master now, haven't you? In my opinion, he's just a servant of the residents of 9 Supremes. What qualifications do you have to stand here and laugh? You're just a clown who relies on your master's power. These earth-shattering and abrupt words caused the expressions of everyone present to instantly change, and they were stunned for a moment. However, at this moment, Qi Lai was filled with jealousy and hatred. He also knew that he no longer had any hope of winning Zhang Luoluo's heart. His years of bitter love had turned into nothing. At this moment, his disappointment and anger had gone to his head. He blurted out words of anger, completely disregarding the consequences. Ping Zhenyue and Gan Tianyan's expressions darkened. The expressions of the other elders and disciples of Phoenix Cry sect changed as well. It was supposed to be a good time for everyone to be happy and harmonious. What did he mean by jumping out like this? Was he trying to stir up trouble? Qi Lai's identity as the chief disciple of Phoenix Cry sect and his unscrupulous words just now were indeed enough to turn the two sects into enemies. Qi Lai was almost the first candidate of the next generation of Phoenix Cry sect, and his desire was far greater than that of the others in Phoenix Cry sect. However, Phoenix Cry sect leader Ping Zhenyue only felt that she had lost face. Her face had actually been slapped by her own direct disciple. She was instantly enraged. Just as she was about to scold Zhang Luoluo, she heard Zhang Luoluo scream, "Qi Lai, what do you mean by this? Do you want to die?" To Luo Dajiang, this moment was a yearning, and to Zhang Luoluo, it was the dream of her life. Now that Qi Lai had jumped out to stir up trouble and shattered her dream with a single word, how could Zhang Luoluo let it go? For the first time, the girl was filled with killing intent. Luo Dajiang was also filled with killing intent. He looked up abruptly at Qi Lai, his eyes full of coldness. Qi Lai was furious again, and he had completely lost his mind. He drew his sword and shouted, "Luo Dajiang, do you dare to fight me one-on-one and see who is Luoluo's man?" As soon as he said that, all the disciples of Residents of Nine Supremes were furious and eager to fight. They could not believe that someone dared to insult their master, Uncle Master, in front of them. They all took a step forward. Yun Yang's expression remained unchanged as he shouted in a deep voice, "What do you want to do? The elders are having a discussion here, so how can you step forward? You are all a bunch of unruly attackers. Step back now." At the same time, Ping Zhenyue's face was as cold as ice as she shouted, "Step back!" Yun Xiuxin and the other disciples bowed their heads at the same time. "We dare not." Following that, they retreated 3 steps in unison, not daring to utter a single word as they trembled in fear. Qi Lai, on the other hand, was still flushed and his eyes were bloodshot. Ignoring his master's advice, he took a step forward and said sternly, "Luo Dajiang, don't you dare. Are you still a man?" At this moment, Ping Zhenyue's face turned purple. At this moment, she was so ashamed that she could not show her face anymore. When the disciples of Residents of Nine Supremes rushed forward, the sect leader ordered them to step back, and all the disciples retreated like kittens, not daring to make a sound or even breathe loudly. However, when she asked them to step back, her disciples did not seem to have heard her and continued to rush forward. This was more than a clear judgment of who was superior. It was a complete disgrace to her. "How dare you?" Gan Tianyan was also embarrassed. What Qi Lai was doing now was treating Zhang Luoluo like a prize, and whoever won would take her away. Where did this put Zhang Luoluo and Gan Tianyan, Zhang Luoluo's master? On the other side, He Shansong, the sect leader of Daluo sect, chuckled and said respectfully, "Sect leader Yun, you are very strict in restraining your disciples. I admire you. The disciples of your residents are all very cultured, and I'm really envious of them." This sentence was like an even louder and heavier slap to Ping Zhenyue's face. If the disciples of Residents of Nine Supremes were cultured, then that meant, my disciple was not cultured. She was about to explode. However, Yun Yang was one step ahead of her. He looked at Qi Lai and said amiably, "May I ask who this is?" Ping Zhenyue's face darkened. She held back her anger that was about to explode and said, "This is my disciple. He is representing our sect today, and his qi is damaged, causing his mind to be a little muddled. He probably doesn't even know what he's saying or doing. Qi Lai, hurry up and apologize to sect leader Yun." Ping Zhenyue was clearly spouting nonsense with a straight face. She was just trying to find a way for her disciple to step down from the stage. After all, Qi Lai was her successor. If she could, she really didn't want to give him up. Even if Qi Lai was no longer qualified to inherit the position of Phoenix Cry sect leader after today, he was still a trump card of Phoenix Cry sect in the future. If she could turn the situation around, it would be better. You've been working hard this month, haven't you? GT. Chapter 1145. Qi Lai panted heavily, his eyes bloodshot as he glared at Luo Dejiang. Only then did he turn to look at Yun Yang. As he stared, it seemed that Yun Yang's face had turned into Luo Dejiang's again, sneering at him. Hysterically he exploded again. Luo is mine. Fight me if you're not convinced. Snatch her from me. All the disciples of the Phoenix Cry sect looked at him in horror. Eldest senior brother. You are really awesome today. You have disobeyed Master's orders several times in a row. Not only once, but also 3 times. What do you want to do? Did he really not want to think about it anymore? Luo is mine. Qi Lai roared in grief and indignation. Who the hell is Luo Dejiang? He's just a slave of the residence of 9 Supremes, and I find it shameful that he's so happy to be a slave. Luo can't waste her life because of such a person. I must kill him. Luo Dejiang is the residence of 9 Supremes slave? TSK. I really don't know how you understand this. I only know that Luo Dejiang is the 3rd most influential person in the residence of 9 Supremes and the 3rd elder of this newly founded sect. Among the top 10 disciples who are going to fight this time, 2 of them are his disciples, so he must be one of the founders of the residence of 9 Supremes. Yun Yang's gaze was as sharp as a knife. May I ask what kind of person Qi Lai is in the Phoenix Cry sect? Is there anyone who can inherit it now? Do you have any say in the Phoenix Cry sect? I can say that Luo Dejiang's words carry a lot of weight in the residence of 9 Supremes. Qi Lai roared, I. Suddenly he was speechless. It was obvious that Yun Yang's every word had hit the nail on the head. All his slanderous words about Luo Dejiang had been refuted in a flawless manner, which further accentuated his vile thoughts and lack of achievements. Yun Yang's expression was as cold as ice. Luo Dejiang is the 3rd most influential person in the residence of 9 Supremes and the teacher of all the disciples, Yun Yang said faintly. Disciples of the residence of 9 Supremes, listen up. The disciples are here. This man insulted your elders in public, which is a great humiliation to the residence of 9 Supremes. This case must be settled. However, today is a joyous day for the residence of 9 Supremes, and it is inauspicious to see blood. Moreover, in this place, even if he killed them, he could still revive them, so he didn't want to waste too much effort. We don't want to argue with him. If his master has something to do, then the disciple will do it for him. However, I hope that in the future, when you succeed in your studies, you will help your elders wash away this humiliation. This is the responsibility of a disciple. We will remember Master's teachings. In this life, we will wipe away this humiliation. The eyes of Yun Xueqi and the others were spewing fire as they fixed their gazes on Qi Lai's face, remembering this man. This is the person who insulted our elders. It is this person who chose to provoke us on our joyous day. But today is the residence of 9 Supremes' big day. We don't want to ruin everyone's mood because of trash like you, so we'll let you go for now. However, we'll never let you go in this lifetime. It was him. Yun Yang turned to look at Ping Zhenyue. His smile was still as gentle as before as he said respectfully, Today is a joyous day for this humble residence. I do not wish to cause unnecessary trouble. Senior, do you think we should let this matter rest for now? He smiled and said, I'll leave this matter to the younger generation. This is also a good way to promote each other. I believe that Senior will not oppose this little one's suggestion. Younger generation? Yun Yang was the leader of a residence, and his position was on the same level as Ping Zhenyue's, and his disciple was, of course, on the same level as Ping Zhenyue's disciple, Qi Lai. From this point of view, it was reasonable for him to regard Qi Lai as a junior. However, Qi Lai's cultivation base was far above the juniors of the residence of 9 Supremes, and few of the higher-ups of the residence, including Yun Yang, could be his match. As for letting this matter rest, of course, Ping Zhenyue would be happy to see the matter come to an end. Even now, she was still unwilling to give up on Qi Lai. If she had a choice, she would rather punish Qi Lai severely in front of Yun Yang to remove the knot between them. However, how could she not know the true meaning of solving the matter themselves? Yun Yang was obviously using this matter to set a short-term goal for his disciples to unite against a common enemy. There were even some who wanted to use this incident to plant a seed deep in the hearts of the disciples. In terms of the long-term effect alone, its far-reaching significance had already exceeded countless expectations. As long as any of his disciples succeeded in their cultivation, they could come and find trouble with Qi Lai. What was a good way to promote each other? It was obviously only the residents of 9 Supremes that would promote each other, not the Phoenix Cry sect. She glanced at Qi Lai and saw that he was still indignant and did not take Yun Yang's words seriously at all. Most likely, he would also hate him as well. Ping Zhenyue sighed deeply in her heart. Until now, do you still not understand what you've provoked? Do you still not realize that you're destined to follow in the footsteps of the Demiurge Flawed 10? A whetstone. A whetstone exclusive to all the disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes. Today, you've insulted the residents of 9 Supremes' third-ranked person. From now on, you'll only have the value of being a whetstone, until the day when you, the whetstone, are completely ground flat, broken, and crushed by the disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes. Thinking of this, Ping Zhenyue did not even have the heart to punish Qi Lai anymore. What she could understand, Gong Tianyan could, of course, understand as well. This included all the leaders and higher-ups of the sects who had come to congratulate them. Yun Yang's words seemed to be a joke, and he even pushed the grudge to the younger generation to deal with. He seemed to be generous and only motivated the disciples to improve. In reality, everyone knew that Qi Lai would not live long. Moreover, before he died, he would have to bear the fate of the person he had looked down on the most. With Yun Yang's order, as long as Qi Lai did not die, as long as the residents of 9 Supremes still existed, the disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes who had a high cultivation base would come to find trouble with Qi Lai. Qi Lai would be the first enemy of the disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes, a target that they had to eliminate. Imagine the humiliation that Qi Lai had suffered at the residents of 9 Supremes' most glorious moment. The humiliation at such a time would not end until the enemy was dead, and there was no turning back. Even if Qi Lai died at that time, this matter would still be written into the history of the residents of 9 Supremes' disciples. It would be used to teach the disciples for thousands of years. Therefore, it could be said with certainty that from now on, Qi Lai could be declared to be immortal and recorded in history. At least, he would live forever in the history of the residents of 9 Supremes. Yun Yang's move could not be said to not be vicious. Whether it was now or in the future, it was extremely vicious. Moreover, the Phoenix Cry sect was now determined to be on good terms with the residents of 9 Supremes, and Yun Yang had given this order in front of the sect leader and all the higher-ups of the sect. The cause of this matter was Qi Lai's own fault, seeking his own death. No one could deny this. Since he had done something wrong, it was reasonable for him to be punished accordingly. Ping Zhenyue could not object today, let alone plead for mercy, but today was the only chance for him to turn things around. If he missed this day, everything would be irreparable. If Yun Yang had beaten Qi Lai up today, even if he had crippled him, this matter would have been over. However, Yun Yang had directly dismissed it as a mischievous act of a junior, nailing this topic to death. Now, there was no way to turn things around. Sect leader Yun is indeed far-sighted. Ping Zhenyue let out a long sigh. He Shansong, the leader of the Daluo sect, also gave Yun Yang a deep look. The leader of the residents of 9 Supremes was young, but he was very experienced and ruthless. He had made a prompt decision and hit the target with a single strike. The higher-ups of the other sects also wore thoughtful expressions. The sect leader of the residents of 9 Supremes had a clever mind. Qi Lai's provocation just now could be said to have added a thick and heavy stroke to the residents of 9 Supremes' most glorious moment, adding a few more flaws to this infinitely glorious and magnificent performance. This was an extremely embarrassing matter. Even if the entire residents of 9 Supremes were to attack Qi Lai and tear him into pieces, it would not help. Moreover, when everyone was competing to congratulate him, once he lost his composure and flew into a rage, it would definitely damage his social status. However, Yun Yang had reduced this matter into a small one with a few casual words. No matter how angry and provocative Qi Lai was in the future, there would be people from the Phoenix Cry sect to punish him immediately. In the long run, this matter would inspire generations of the residents of 9 Supremes' disciples. Once Yun Yang's disciples succeeded in taking revenge on Qi Lai, the residents of 9 Supremes would still record this as a major event in the annals of history. forever inspiring the future generations. Such a method was almost like turning stone into gold, turning something rotten into something magical. It was a spectacular and amazing sight. The leaders of the other sects asked themselves if they were in Yunyang's shoes and in the same situation, they might not be able to do it so perfectly. The Heaven Saber Tower congratulates the residents of 9 Supremes and sect leader Yun. The Frosty Sword Pavilion congratulates the residents of 9 Supremes and sect leader Yun. The Black Mountain Alliance congratulates. Yunyang smiled and bowed to each of them, expressing his gratitude. He chatted happily with the leaders of the sections. At least, the scene was harmonious. Qi Lai of the Phoenix Cry sect wanted to say something, but Gong Tianyan immediately sealed his acupoints and threw him to the back. Don't offend anyone. On the side, Ping Jinyue murmured in her heart. The way she looked at Qi Lai was also a little strange. She had already come to a conclusion. This disciple could be considered as useless. See, I need to reconsider the candidates for the core disciples of the Phoenix Cry sect. Of course, if he could suppress the residents of 9 Supremes' revenge all the way and finally break through this cage and stand out, he would be a stronger candidate. But what if? Also, his emotions are too extreme. He's narrow-minded and can't be of any use. Infatuation was a good thing, but excessive infatuation, or even impulsive and violent, could bring the sect into the abyss at any time. The leaders of the 8 celestial luck banners all came over to greet him, and Yunyang greeted them one by one with a warm smile, polite, neither servile nor overbearing and graceful. He was a modest gentleman, gentle as jade, a young master of the troubled times, unparalleled in this world. Junior sister Yu of the Daluo sect's eyes lit up when she saw such an elegant young master. The more she looked at him, the more she liked him, and she could not help but clamp her legs together. After a while, she finally took a step forward and asked softly, "Sect leader Yun, have you ever been married?" Yunyang coughed. The leader of the Daluo sect was exasperated. His lips moved, but he did not say anything. The reason why he Shansong, the leader of the Daluo sect, did not show up immediately was that he could not do anything to his precious junior sister. Secondly, if his junior sister succeeded, not only would she have a lifetime of support, but the Daluo sect would also be able to gain strong support. The Phoenix Cry sect would not be monopolized, and they might even be better. Yunyang smiled and said, "May I ask who senior is?" Junior sister Yu interrupted. "Why are you calling me senior? You can just call me sister Yu." Yunyang glanced at He Shansong of the Daluo sect as if asking for help, but he saw the sect leader turn his face away with his lips twitching. "This young brother is already engaged," Yunyang answered dryly. "Yes, it doesn't matter. How many do you have?" Junior sister Yu asked an unexpected question. 2. Yunyang coughed. 2. Junior sister Yu said, "Since I can marry 2, it's not a big deal to marry one more. What do you think of me?" Once the words left her mouth, everyone present was dumbfounded and coughing could be heard all at once. This was the first time they had seen such a situation. It was too strange, too bold. Yunyang could not help but be stunned when he heard this. "God. Oh my God. Cough, this is not very appropriate." Yunyang sighed and said, "My 2 wives are my master's daughters." Sigh. "My master. If I were to find another one, I'm afraid this young brother will die tomorrow after finding one today." Junior sister Yu said, "Your master? So what if it's your master? What cultivation base does your master have? He's actually so domineering." Yunyang coughed and said, "My master, cough cough this." Hearing junior sister Yu's question, everyone's eyes lit up. Leader Yun's origin was mysterious and his identity was a mystery. Hearing about his master out of the blue was obviously a great help in understanding him indirectly. He just didn't know what kind of earth-shattering existence could train such an outstanding disciple. Was it a renowned figure in the bound of universe, or a reclusive expert? Everyone was very interested in this name that was on the verge of being revealed. Yunyang said softly, "My master's kindness to me is as high as the sky and as deep as the earth. In a mere 4 years, he's allowed me to achieve what I have today. How can I let down his 2 daughters?" When everyone heard this, without exception, all of them were shocked, and their faces were filled with astonishment. A mere 4 years. Everyone heard these 4 words, the most crucial word in this sentence. In a mere 4 years, he could train a monster like Yunyang. Although the crowd could not see Yun Yang's real cultivation base level due to the restriction of the fifth peak, from the fact that he could defeat 7-star Sex Wu Yu, his real cultivation base should be at least a third-grade Saint King. Looking at the disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes, each of them was as young as a bag of water. The oldest among them was probably very young, but their cultivation base was at least at the level of an honor. In fact, this was not surprising at all. The residents of 9 Supremes had just been established, less than a year ago. Did it not mean that these disciples had only been trained for less than a year? Was this not too sensational? Just by looking at these superficial phenomena, it was not difficult to imagine that Yun Yang's master must be in existence with earth-shattering abilities. May I ask, is the residence of 9 Supremes presided over by your master? He Shansong asked cautiously. On the path of cultivation, apart from perseverance, caution was also a crucial component. Regarding the unknown, it was not an exaggeration to make a high evaluation. Therefore, at this moment, He Shansong subconsciously lowered his status and deliberately put himself at the level of a junior. The higher level of the residence of 9 Supremes is limited to us. My master only comes out occasionally. He's lazy by nature and doesn't like worldly affairs. He prefers to be alone in the forest. Sometimes, he can watch a flower from the moment it sprouts to the moment it blooms. Yun Yang smiled. Yun Yang chuckled. My master is a very eccentric person, isn't he? Following Yun Yang's description, the image of a reclusive hermit seemed to appear clearly in front of everyone's eyes. He did not care about anything and everything, watching the flowers bloom and fade with a smile, observing the clouds in silence. He Shansong asked cautiously, Sect leader Yun, may I ask what your master's name is? Yun Yang answered, my master's surname is Ji, but he rarely mentioned his past. I'm ashamed to say that I, as his direct disciple, don't know much. Everyone's expression turned serious. How could such an earth-shattering expert be someone without a name? The more unwilling he was to explain, the more remarkable he must be, the more extraordinary he must be. Everyone should know that I've ascended to the bound of universe from another realm, but most of you probably don't know that I've only entered the Tao recently. I've only cultivated for 3 years in the realm where I was born. It's also the 3 years that my master taught me that gave me the qualification to ascend to the bound of universe. As for when I arrived there, after I've established a sect and my master came. Yun Yang continued to be confused, bragging as much as he could. Actually, I really don't know much about my master. He sighed after he finished speaking. This is all sect leader Yun's opportunity. An extraordinary opportunity. He Shansong nodded and looked at his junior sister sternly. Don't you mess things up. If Yun Yang is really seduced by you, we'll have to face the wrath of a super-powerful expert. That's a giant who can cross realms at will. Just say it if you want to die, but it won't do if our sect is involved. Junior sister Yu was still rather indignant as she murmured, if I can't be the main wife, I can be a concubine. I don't mind. Yun Yang glanced sideways at junior sister Yu's voluptuous figure and coughed, chuckling dryly, not daring to continue the conversation. This woman. Does she think I'm a joke? You don't mind, but I do. The two in my family must be very concerned as well. And that elder G. I've tried my best to flatter the old man, but I know that I'm limited by my knowledge and experience, so I probably haven't described even 1,000th of what he's capable of. I'm telling the truth. One had to admit that Yun Yang's understanding was rather accurate. His description really did not describe even 1,000th of what Elder G was capable of. It was unknown whether it was a stroke of luck or a stroke of luck. On the other side of the galaxy far away, someone suddenly sneezed continuously, wondering what was wrong with him. Could it be that I've been targeted by some bad guys? Oh no, I have to run, or I'll be ganged up and beaten up again. After the impromptu banter came to an end, the residents of 9 Supremes had become familiar with all the sections. When the residents of 9 Supremes ascends to the middle class, we'll definitely go and congratulate you. The leaders of all the sects also gave such a promise. It was only then that Yun Yang realized that there was still a ceremony and a banquet after ascending to the middle class. Ping Zhanyue, the leader of the Phoenix Cry sect, said, Yun Yang, this time, you may not go back immediately. I'll send junior sister Gon over to the residence of 9 Supremes to take care of things first. Yun Yang was stunned. What do you mean by this, senior? Please enlighten me, senior. Ping Zhanyue smiled faintly. This is probably the most dangerous moment for the residents of Nine Supremes. I believe that all the main forces of the residents of Nine Supremes must be here to deal with the promotion battle. It's rare for them to return as soon as possible, so your headquarters, where your mountain gate is located, should be at its weakest and most vulnerable. She smiled meaningfully and said, "You've defeated so many sects, I'm sure you've made many enemies. Some of them must be guarded against. The location of your mountain gate is crucial to any sect." Yun Yang said hesitantly, "Then thank you." He had wanted to say that the sect had sufficient defense forces, and that Dong Qiqian alone was enough to defeat the main forces here. However, on second thought, if Gan Tianyan could help, Dong Qiqian could be kept a secret. It was always better to have more trump cards, and the more secretive they were, the better. It was fine as long as he knew his true strength. Why did he have to let everyone know and make them more wary? The residents of Nine Supremes had been in the limelight too much this time. Going too far was as bad as not going far enough. When the sect leaders came, they came in a hubbub, but when they left, they did not make a sound. A few of them had even given Yun Yang a suggestive look. Even with Yun Yang's intelligence, he still could not wrap his head around it. Sect leader Yun, seize the opportunity. Ping Zhenyue said before she left, leaving Yun Yang even more bewildered. Seize the opportunity? What opportunity? However, the way Ping Zhenyue looked at her disciple before she left made Yun Yang sigh. Qilai. Luo Dajiang's rival in love. His position in Phoenix Cry sect would not be very optimistic from today onwards. But what opportunity did Ping Zhenyue mean by this? As he pondered, he heard Pu Deshuang's voice coming from the stage. Sect leader Yun, congratulations on your successful advancement. Please lead your disciples to the high platform. All the sect leaders who were still on their way out looked at Yun Yang with envy and jealousy. A few of them even sighed deeply. We've never encountered such an opportunity before. We've only heard of it in legends. Who would have thought that someone would actually achieve such an achievement today? A miracle has finally happened. It's just that we don't know what kind of benefit it is. That's right. Looks like the residence of Nine Supremes is destined to soar into the sky. If we plunder it now. Shut up, idiot. Plundering the residence of Nine Supremes base is just a temporary vent of anger. As long as Yun Yang and his people are still here, the celestial luck banner will not disappear. Use your brain when you do things. That's right. The residence of Nine Supremes has no grudge against us. Why should we provoke this trouble? If we really plunder the residence of Nine Supremes base, when Yun Yang and his people's cultivation base improves by leaps and bounds because of this opportunity, it will be too late for us to do anything. All the elites of the residence of Nine Supremes are gathered here. What's the point of just destroying the base? You're right. Let's just wait and see. Don't worry. The Seven Stars sect will do it. They're the ones who have an irreconcilable grudge against the residents of Nine Supremes. Yun Yang brought his disciples to the stage. The look in Pu Deshuang's eyes was complicated, the kind of complicated that could not be more complicated. In terms of attitude, he really wanted to be on good terms with Yun Yang. After all, such a developing sect with a bright future was worthy of anyone's friendship, especially if there was no enmity or conflict of interest. However, every time Pu Deshuang wanted to do so, he felt as if his heart was bleeding. It's because of them. I've lost 4,000 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jade. 4,000 pieces of supreme-grade spiritual jade. Oh my god. The heartache is killing me. Yun Yang felt strange about Deacon Pu's attitude. Why is this Deacon Pu looking at me with such a heartache? Not only Deacon Pu, but the other two deacons are also looking at me with the same heartache and inexplicable grief. Where did this come from? Could it be that the Seven Star sect has a very deep relationship with these three people? Sect leader Yun. Now that you've advanced to the middle class, your future is very promising. This old man congratulates you sincerely, Pu Deshuang first said politely. Yun Yang hurried to be modest. He knew very well that any high-level martial artist was at least a few thousand years old. Don't be fooled by the appearance of a middle-aged man in his late 20s or early 30s. In reality, if any one of them revealed their true age, ordinary people would exclaim in surprise, "Immortal." Monsters. As the saying went in Tianxian continent, A dynasty of 100 years is a family of 1,000 years. And the age of these people was even more terrifying than that of a family of 1,000 years. It was very normal for them to call themselves old men. How could they not call themselves old men when they were thousands of years old? Since the celestial luck banner came into existence, there has always been a benefit. Pu Deshuang smiled and said, "It's just that no one has reached this standard in the last 30,000 years, so no one has received this benefit." Chapter 1146. This time it was very strange. It was just a fever, but there was no headache, no dizziness, no runny nose, and no coughing. To put it simply, there was no feeling of discomfort, just a high body temperature. However, I continued to burn like this. New Year's Eve. I wish my brothers and sisters of the Feng clan a happy new year. I hope that in the new year, your work will be smooth, your family will be happy, and everything will go well for you. I hope that you will encounter opportunities on the road, dream about winning a lottery number, get promoted, and make money. I hope that you will always be in a good mood. Looking back at 2018, I've had a rough year. I've been hoping for 2018 to pass quickly and 2019 to arrive quickly. Now, a new year had begun. Brothers and sisters, I won't say anything nice. In the new year, let's see what we do. I also wish myself the best in the new year. Everything will go smoothly. Happy New Year to I Am the Supreme. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1147. At this point, Xueqi and the others all showed an inexplicable surprise on their faces. The meaning behind Pu Deshuang's words was obvious. If they had not reached the standard, he would not have said this at all. Since you have said it, it proves that we have reached the standard. Yun Yang's face was unruffled and unusually calm. Please elaborate, Deacon. Pu Deshuang looked at Yun Yang with admiration and said, "In the battle of the celestial luck banners, if someone can pass through all the celestial luck banners in one go and advance directly, he will be rewarded with a month's time in the demonic realm." Yun Yang frowned and said, "The demonic realm?" This was the first time he had heard of this term. Pu Deshuang glanced at the token in his hand. It was glowing, with endless words appearing on it. This was the token to open the fifth heaven. The demonic realm is a place of cultivation that was specially set up by the senior many years ago. Pu Deshuang said, the senior had predicted that there would be a battle between the human world and the demon race in the future, so he deliberately left a blessed place to help the younger generation improve their cultivation. However, to enter this realm, the 9 levels of the celestial luck banners as one is the first indispensable condition. Only when this condition is met can one be qualified to enter. Therefore, even we from the Sacred Heart Palace have never seen what's going on inside, Yi Futian said. There was a hint of regret in Pu Deshuang's voice. I would like to see it too. Unfortunately, I don't have such an opportunity. Only Yun Yang with the celestial luck banner was qualified to enter. Also, those who participated in the battle of the celestial luck banners of the residents of 9 Supremes could also enter if they also had the shadow of the celestial luck banner. Others, including Jiang Luoluo, could not enter together, let alone others. Pu Deshuang said enviously, Sect Leader Yun, now, as long as you connect your celestial luck banner to this token in my hand, you can enter that secret realm. Yun Yang did not immediately take out the celestial luck banner, but asked cautiously, Deacon Pu, is there any other explanation about this realm? Pu Deshuang shook his head and said, no special explanation. There is only one relevant clue about this realm, and that is, after everyone enters, everyone will be separated from the others. In other words, everyone's experience in this realm is different. Does that mean that when the 20 of us enter, we won't be able to see each other, let alone interact with each other? Yes. In this realm, everyone has their own fortuitous encounters, and they can't advance by cooperating with each other. Understood. May I ask again, Deacon Pu, is there any danger in here? Yun Yang asked. Pu Deshuang looked at Yun Yang in surprise. At this moment, he really had the thought of befriending Yun Yang. This fellow's mind was simply too clear. If it was anyone else, they would be wild with joy after knowing that they had obtained such a benefit. Even if they were experienced and prudent, In the face of such a great opportunity, their faces would at least be flushed with excitement, right? Looking at Xueqi and the others who were with him, they almost jumped up. However, this fellow was completely different from the others. From the start to the end, he did not make the slightest abnormal movement. He was as calm as ever, and throughout the entire process, he had been asking about the secret realm in detail. Now he was asking about the danger. Obviously, this fellow's rationality had reached a considerable level. I'm not sure whether it's dangerous or not, so I dare not jump to conclusions. Pu Deshuang said vaguely, however, since it's a place of trial, even if it's dangerous, it won't be too much. After all, the original intention of the senior who set up this arcane realm was to let the latecomers obtain this opportunity and advance further, so that he could defend the bound of universe against the realm of demons. Yun Yang pondered for a moment and said, "Can I see the words that are appearing on the token now?" Pu Deshuang was even more speechless. "That's not a problem. This token should have been given to you directly, but because all of you will enter the arcane realm, I'm holding it for the time being. It's considered an additional layer of protection. You can take it and look at it for as long as you want. The only thing I have to remind you is that you can only stay in the arcane realm for a month. The countdown has already begun. Every quarter of an hour you spend in the outside world is equivalent to the quarter of an hour you'll lose inside, and the quarter of an hour in the arcane realm is the golden time for cultivation. You can weigh the pros and cons yourself." Yun Yang nodded faintly. "Thank you for the reminder, Steward Pu." Still, he took the token over and studied it carefully. Pu Deshuang rolled his eyes. Look at it for a month if you're so capable." Yun Yang held the token and studied it carefully. Until now, the words were still appearing on it. He started from the beginning, reading each word carefully and studying it carefully. The first part of the text was the same as what Pu Deshuang had said, while the content that appeared later was basically the explanation in front. However, it was this explanation that made Yun Yang's eyes brighten. As he read, he said faintly, "After we enter, we'll go our separate ways. Everyone has their own destiny ahead of them. Take care of yourselves and keep moving forward. This realm is a trial of life and death. Each stage that everyone faces is set according to everyone's current limit. Every stage that you break through is an improvement. So, don't panic after you enter. No matter what situation you encounter, remember that the situation is something that you can handle yourself. As long as you don't give up and try your best, you'll be able to pass. Even if you encounter a situation where death is certain, try hard to recall the teachings of your masters and try different methods. The only way to survive is within the boundary of death. Do you understand? After you enter, remember not to panic if you're injured inside. What you need to do next is to find a safe place to hide. 6 hours will be enough for you to recover no matter how serious your injury is. However, remember not to expose yourself to the eyes of the mystical beasts inside. After you enter, Yun Yang had found a total of 12 key points and explained them to his disciples patiently. Everyone, including Xueqi and Luo Dejiang, looked solemn as they memorized them seriously, not slacking off at all. Every word that Yun Yang said was priceless advice, a way to save their lives. Every sentence, every word, was extremely important, and could not be overlooked. After a quarter of an hour, Yun Yang finally raised his head and said, "Get ready, everyone. We're going in." Beside him, Pu Deshuang rolled his eyes. "What a troublemaker. Do you have to be so detailed? Most of what you said is common sense in the martial world." In spite of that, Pu Deshuang felt a little envious of the disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes. If I had such a teacher to teach me when I was learning, perhaps my achievements would be much more than what I am now, wouldn't they? Although he was impatient, Pu Deshuang also understood that the last-minute training was obviously more suitable for these young, inexperienced disciples. The things that they had memorized in this quarter of an hour were obviously very useful. Once they entered and encountered one or a few of the things Yun Yang had mentioned, or if they recalled these words when they felt helpless and wanted to give up, and used these words to guide them through the difficulty safely, then, these precautions today would become an indelible mark in the hearts of these disciples for the rest of their lives. For a martial artist, such a mark in the heart would benefit them for life. Yun Yang had always been able to make use of everything to help his disciples improve or to gain enlightenment. What was especially undeniable was that every time he did this, his disciples would benefit greatly from it, and they would never forget it for the rest of their lives. Such a considerate teacher. No matter which world it was, there were far too few. While Pu Deshuang was still filled with emotions, he was surprised to see a bright light in front of him. A rainbow-colored door appeared out of thin air in front of him. A ball of green light emerged from the door and enveloped the 20 disciples of the residence of 9 Supremes in an instant. The next moment, the door disappeared abruptly. It had only been a few breaths' time. Jiang Luoluo, who was initially among the disciples, was precisely left behind. She only had time to say, "De Jiang, be careful." She could no longer see anyone. Jiang Luoluo stood outside in shock, her lips pouting. "I'm a part of the residence of 9 Supremes too. Why am I left behind? I'm their leader's wife. Just because I didn't fight in the Celestial Luck Banner match? It's not that I don't want to fight. I really want to. I'm so angry." She turned and walked toward the Phoenix Cry sect. Gon Tianyan watched her disciple come over with a smile on her face. This girl. Humph. Does she think she can sneak in? How could a fortuitous encounter be obtained by forcing it? Don't pout. We're about to start the challenge. I'm afraid you'll have to fight. Gon Tianyan smiled. After this battle, I'll immediately set off with you to the residence of 9 Supremes. The mountain gate of the residence of 9 Supremes is also of utmost importance. We can't be careless. Yes, Master. Jiang Luoluo nodded. The Phoenix Cry sect waited for less than 2 hours before the thick fog above suddenly parted. A group of people walked down with faces full of anger and indignation. The General Commerce League has successfully challenged the superior class Celestial Luck Banner. The person who led them down was another deacon. Brother Pu, you're still in charge here. This is the Jade Tripod sect that has been demoted to the middle class this time. Upon hearing this, the faces of everyone in the Jade Tripod sect turned gloomy. At this moment, Ping Jinyue took a step forward and said in a low voice, "The Phoenix Cry sect, the second-place sect of the middle-class Celestial Luck Banner, will challenge the Jade Tripod sect as usual for the position of the middle-class first seat. Deacon Pu, please host." As soon as the words came out, it was like a thunderclap that resounded over the heads of all the members of the Jade Tripod sect. F***CK, we've just been defeated, but there are still people who won't let us go? Want to beat us when we're down? All right, I'll vent my anger on you. I'll let you know the true strength of the original superior class Celestial Luck Banner sects. The Jade Tripod sect's leader wore a twisted smile as he said through gritted teeth, "This is the rule of the Celestial Luck Banner. We, the Jade Tripod sect, will accept the challenge. Let's invite the 2 sect leaders up the stage." When Pu Deshuang said this, he looked at the empty space around him, thinking, how are the people from the residence of 9 Supremes now? What's going on in the secret realm? Should I wait here for them to come out? On the second level, where the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner sects fought, Wei Tao from the Golden Cauldron sect led his men away, swearing. The Golden Cauldron sect challenged the 7-star sect. 2 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. The final result was a draw, with neither victory nor defeat. However, this meant that the Golden Cauldron sect could not advance to the next level. The people from the 7-star sect, who were lucky enough to keep their position as the chief disciple, were sweating profusely. That was close. That was really close. I didn't expect that there would be such a strong sect competing for the position of the chief disciple after being defeated by an intermediate class sect, and they almost beat us to second place. If it wasn't for the 7 stars formation that brought us back to a draw in the 5th formation match, our 7-star sect would have been defeated. They were drenched in cold sweat, and there was still a lingering fear in their hearts. As the battle between the 7-star sect and the Golden Cauldron sect came to an end, the battle between the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner sects came to an end. All the sects walked out of the 5-layered mountain one after another, returning to their respective sections. However, each of them wore a complicated expression as they reminisced, the bitterness in their hearts. Thinking of the residence of 9 Supremes that had appeared out of nowhere like a shooting star and swept away all the lower-class Celestial Luck Banner sects, they did not know what to feel. However, the 7-star sect did not go back directly. We lost to the residence of 9 Supremes in the previous battle. It was such an injustice. Wu Yu gritted his teeth in anger. That's right. Our true strength is clearly above the residence of 9 Supremes. I can't swallow this no matter what. Sect leader, let's go to the residence of 9 Supremes. We must destroy this sect that has become incoherent once it succeeds. Wu Yu's face was dark. If I don't vent this anger, I won't be able to face anyone in this life. Duan Tianchong gritted his teeth and said, I have the same intention. The residents of 9 Supremes defeated us with despicable means, not because they have genuine talent. Let's go to the residence of 9 Supremes Mountain Gate and annihilate its orthodoxy. Then, we'll wait for Yunyang and the others to come back and we'll kill them directly. As long as we wipe out the residents of 9 Supremes, we'll be able to return to the middle class 3 years later. Most of the 7-star sect's people were eager to try, but there were also a few who looked doubtful. Duan Tianchong gritted his teeth and explained again, Everyone, this may be our only chance to return to the middle class. If we let these people cultivate in the middle class for another 3 years, I'm afraid we really won't be able to take it back. The crowd nodded heavily, and no one had any objections. This was the truth. The residents of 9 Supremes already possessed such strength. If they had the help of the middle-class Celestial Luck Banner, they would still be in the lower class for 3 years, which was twice the difference in spiritual chi. What we're doing this time is against the martial world's morality. But for the sect and for ourselves, we can't care too much. Every man for himself will be destroyed by heaven and earth. On the path of cultivation, those who stand in our way will be killed without mercy. What sect leader said is reasonable. Everything is for the sake of our 7-star sect's foundation. Let's go. There's no time to lose. Let's go. The people of the 7-star sect flew away, majestically and rapidly. Chapter 1148. The Residence of 9 Supremes. Ever since Yunyang and the others left, everything had gone according to plan. Nothing out of the ordinary had happened. However, the disciples in the valley were all working even harder in their cultivation. Dong Qitian stood at the highest point every day, feeling the spiritual qi washing over him in a cycle. He had even secretly appointed 100 disciples to observe the specific changes in their physiques. After this period of observation, Dong Qitian finally confirmed one thing. Cultivating in the residence of 9 Supremes would really change a person's innate talent as time passed, and it was a completely optimized change. The discovery shocked Dong Qitian to the core. He knew that even the superior class Celestial Luck Banner, or even the gold class Celestial Luck Banner, did not have such a nature-defying effect. If so, how did the residents of 9 Supremes do it? But on this day, it's almost been 20 days. Dong Qitian murmured to himself. The battle of the Celestial Luck Banner is almost over, isn't it? I wonder how they've fared? Dong Qitian was looking up at the sky when he suddenly sensed something. As a cultivator, he could instantly tell that the residence of 9 Supremes was about to change. A moment later, he felt a slight tremor coming from the residence of 9 Supremes beneath his feet. It was not a large tremor, at most, enough to cause ripples in a pool of clear water. An ordinary person or even an ordinary cultivator would find it difficult to sense such a feeling. However, with Dong Qitian's cultivation base, he could easily tell, but he could not pinpoint the source of the vibration. This phenomenon piqued Dong Qitian's interest. As the tremor continued, Dong Qitian was shocked to find that the spiritual qi from all directions was suddenly gathering towards the residence of 9 Supremes at an unimaginably crazy frequency. Even though Dong Qitian had lived for countless years, he had never seen or even heard of such a miraculous phenomenon. As Dong Qitian's thoughts raced, he seemed to have thought of something. He sprung up quickly and went 10,000 feet up in the air. As far as his eyes could see, the spiritual qi tide was vast and boundless. Even at such a high altitude, he could not see the end of it. Dong Qitian soared another 20,000 feet into the air, looking down at his surroundings from above. It was only then that he could clearly see the wide range of the current spiritual wave. However, because he had seen it clearly, he sucked in a cold breath instinctively. As far as the eye could see, all the spiritual qi within a 6,000 miles radius was gathering towards the residence of 9 Supremes. Wave after wave of seemingly substantial azure spiritual qi surged over without any signs of stopping. Looking down from the sky, the residence of 9 Supremes was already surrounded by an ocean of spiritual qi, billowing with the wind. In this world, the first wave of spiritual qi had already entered the residence of 9 Supremes, And there were still countless waves to follow. Endless and endless. The gears in Dong Qiqian's head spun as he shifted his attention to the situation around the residence of 9 Supremes. He saw that the dozens of hills within a 1,000-mile radius were showing signs of withering. Ordinary people might not know what this meant, but Dong Qiqian knew very well that this sign meant that all the life force within this range was being drained bit by bit until the life force was completely gone and there was no more life force. With such an endless stream of spiritual qi, the aura grew stronger and stronger, unstoppable. The residence of 9 Supremes, which was located at the gathering point of the surrounding spiritual qi, had turned into an endless black hole, absorbing the spiritual qi from all directions like a whale swallowing the sea, as if it would never be satisfied. Has the celestial luck banner been obtained? Dong Qiqian was a little dumbfounded. But even if it's obtained, it can't create such a huge commotion, can it? Even if the residence of 9 Supremes' original spiritual qi had already far surpassed that of ordinary lower-class celestial luck banner sects, it's still within expectations that the spiritual qi would increase by 4 times now that it has obtained the lower-class celestial luck banner. However, such a scale and such a shocking change is simply too extraordinary. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The fluctuation of the spiritual qi wave continued to increase, gradually emitting a violent howl and whine. It was getting more and more intense. The spiritual qi had only entered quietly in the beginning, but now, it was like the Milky Way was pouring in. The momentum was appalling and soul-stirring. At this moment, another beam of green light flashed in midair. Boom! A green celestial luck banner flew swiftly from the distant horizon and landed at the highest point of the residence of 9 Supreme Station. Then, it stopped moving, allowing the torrential spiritual qi storm to come and go. The green celestial luck banner remained motionless. Only the flag, which was dozens of feet wide, fluttered in the wind and rattled. As the green celestial luck banner landed, the speed of the spiritual qi pouring in increased. It was already extremely fast, but now, it had to be added as it flew into the residence of 9 Supremes like streaks of green dragons. Now, the spiritual energy that was pouring in was no longer solid, but pure and solid. Dong Qiqian was completely dumbfounded by the sudden turn of events. He was utterly dumbfounded. No, this is clearly a phenomenon that can only be caused by a middle-class celestial luck banner. But isn't their target the lower-class celestial luck banner this time? How did it become a middle-class one? This doesn't make sense. Could it be that this group of kids soared to middle class in one go after they went there? But, how is this possible? Whether it's Yun Yang, Xueqi, and the others' abilities or the abilities of their disciples, advancing to lower-class celestial luck banner is basically the limit. At most, they can only go to the lower-class intermediate class, and there's no possibility of further advancement. It's wishful thinking to even make it to the top 3 of the lower class, let alone successfully break through to the middle class. Dong Qiqian was very confident in this judgment. In his opinion, the residents of 9 Supreme's expedition this time would definitely obtain the lower-class celestial luck banner. Moreover, the lower-class celestial luck banner would not be the last place. According to his prediction, the residents of 9 Supremes could make it to the middle class of the lower-class celestial luck banner, around 4th or 5th place. It was impossible for them to touch the top 3. After all, the promotion of the celestial luck banner required 5 victories to be qualified to continue challenging. Although the residents of 9 Supreme's current foundation was quite impressive, reaching this point was really the limit. Any of the top 3 lower-class celestial luck banner sects was a solid force, and the residents of 9 Supremes was not enough to keep them in check. Not to mention becoming a lower-class chief disciple, it was an unrealistic dream to fight for a middle-class celestial luck banner and take down the last place of a middle-class sect. But now, the reality was that this absolutely impossible was delivered to them with great fanfare. Dong Qiqian could only smile bitterly as he watched the abundant spiritual qi pouring in like a great river flowing into the sea. But after smiling bitterly, a strong sense of excitement and indescribable emotion rose from the bottom of his heart. Dong Qiqian knew one thing very well. He had actually witnessed a miracle. The original concentration of spiritual qi in the residence of 9 Supremes had far surpassed that of the lower-class celestial luck banner. If the spiritual energy density of a sect with a lower-class celestial luck banner was 4 times higher than that of an ordinary realm, then the spiritual energy density of a sect with a lower-class celestial luck banner would be 4 times higher than that of an ordinary realm. Then, the spiritual qi atmosphere in the residence of 9 Supremes would be at least 6 times stronger. Now that the residents of Nine Supremes had been directly upgraded to a middle-class celestial luck banner sect, its spiritual chi density had been increased by 4 times and the basic providence increased by 2 times on top of the original foundation. In other words, the atmosphere had been increased by 6 times out of thin air. Such an increase. The spiritual chi in the residents of Nine Supremes was comparable to the spiritual chi density of a sect that was about to become an upper-class celestial luck banner sect. A small sect that had just ascended to the ranks of middle-class celestial luck banner sects had the same benefits as upper-class celestial luck banner sections. What did this mean? Moreover, in Dong Qiqian's opinion, what the residents of Nine Supremes possessed was far more than what he could see. There was also a strange force in the residents of Nine Supremes. This unique force was different from ordinary spiritual chi. It possessed a mystical effect that spiritual chi could not achieve. It could subtly change a person's aptitude. Even the Sacred Heart Palace did not possess such an effect that was beyond common knowledge. Even the East Celestial Palace, which was superior to the Sacred Heart Palace, did not possess it. This was a superpower that had never been seen since ancient times. In other words, the residents of Nine Supremes possessed a trump card that was unique in the world. Although such a sect was only a middle-class sect now, its future was already glorious and magnificent. As long as it did not fall, the height it could reach in the future was a height that even Dong Qiqian dared not imagine. The Sacred Heart Palace? The East Celestial Palace? At the very least, Dong Qiqian could now affirm that a sect with an upper-class celestial luck banner would not be the end of the residents of Nine Supremes. Could it be that I've been imprisoned for 4,000 years and now that I'm released, I'm here to witness the birth of this legend? This is the so-called legend that goes down in history. Dong Qiqian mumbled to himself. However, the next moment, looking at the spiritual chi of heaven and earth that was still surging into the residents of Nine Supremes like a green dragon, Dong Qiqian suddenly remembered what he had overlooked, and his expression changed drastically. Is it *T? As the thought flashed through his mind, Dong Qiqian's body blurred and dashed into the residents of Nine Supremes as if he had crossed the void. Everything else aside, Dong Qiqian's skill alone was enough to stun all the people in the middle-class celestial luck banner sections. It was a brilliant move that could move 10,000 miles in an instant. However, Dong Qiqian was not flaunting his skill. It was because of the urgency of the situation. The moment he rushed back to the residence of Nine Supremes, the situation was as he had predicted. More than a quarter of the people in the residence of Nine Supremes looked like they were struggling in pain. Their faces were flushed and their bodies were bloated. Of course, there were also many who had built a solid foundation in the path of martial arts. They were quietly sitting cross-legged to cultivate and absorb spiritual chi. Even with Dong Qiqian's vast knowledge and steady state of mind, he was at a loss for what to do when he saw the situation unfolding before him. "Senior, what should we do?" Ping Xueqi and Guanuanyang flew over, looking anxious. "Senior Dong, what's going on?" Dong Qiqian heaved a long sigh. "This is..." Yun Yang's group has succeeded in seizing the Celestial Luck Banner, and what they've obtained isn't just the established lower-class Celestial Luck Banner but the higher-class middle-class Celestial Luck Banner. In other words, the residents of Nine Supremes has become a middle-class sect now. That's why there's such a massive influx of spiritual chi. This is the benefit of a Celestial Luck Banner sect. It's changing the spiritual chi environment for the residents of Nine Supremes. Ping Xueqi and Guanuanyang had expected this, but they were still shocked. But isn't the extent of the spiritual chi influx a little too much? There are too many people in our sect who can't withstand such an influx of spiritual chi. Dong Qiqian chuckled humorlessly. Speaking of this, I've probably guessed wrongly. I didn't expect Yun Yang's group to actually obtain the middle-class Celestial Luck Banner, causing such a drastic change. However, even I can't do anything about the situation now. Ping Xueqi's expression changed. Even Senior can't do anything about it? Can't we just give it a try? Dong Qiqian looked awkward. If there were only a handful of people, or even a dozen of them, I could still try and guide the flow of spiritual chi. However, there are so many people who are being infused with spiritual chi now. There's no telling who to save or not to save. It's better to let them bear it themselves and guide themselves. If they can get through this crisis eventually, it'll be a great benefit to their mental state and cultivation journey. It's best for them to face this opportunity themselves. Ping Xueqi and Guanuanyang were stunned. Deal with it themselves and endure it? This was obviously a gamble for those who were being infused with spiritual qi. Based on the current situation, would there not be a lot of people dying? Dong Qiqian said in a low voice, "The root cause of the current situation is that the density of spiritual qi is too thick. After going through the natural cleansing, they'll be reborn and enter the path of cultivation. These people are the fated ones. No matter what they cultivate in the future, they'll achieve twice the result with half the effort and become the cream of the crop. However, those who can't withstand such a massive amount of spiritual qi..." Dong Qiqian frowned as he considered his words. "Cause what?" Both of them asked anxiously. "Cause their meridians to rupture and their dantian to be burnt. It's a break in the path of cultivation, returning to the mundane world." Dong Qiqian said solemnly. Returning to the mundane world. Senior, do you mean that they can no longer cultivate and can only be ordinary people? Guanuanyang pressed. "It's better if it's only to return to the mundane world and become ordinary people. Those who can't withstand the spiritual qi will most likely self-destruct on the spot. After all, with the current strength of the spiritual qi, this outcome is already a foregone conclusion. It's hard to change it with any external force. It's futile to try and force it." Dong Qiqian said, "There are too many that can't withstand it now. There's only the three of us. How can we take care of it all? What we should be more concerned about now is the extent of the spiritual qi that's infused into the residents of Nine Supremes. This spiritual qi is the foundation of the residents of Nine Supremes' future. We can't open the mountain guarding formation and let it disperse." Ping Xiaoyi's eyes shone. "Senior, do you mean that if the formation is opened, the concentration of the spiritual qi in the residents of Nine Supremes will be greatly reduced and the disciples will be relieved?" Guanuanyang said, "That's right. As long as the people are still here, nothing matters. I agree with opening the mountain guarding formation to disperse the excessive spiritual qi." Dong Qiqian chuckled humorlessly again. "You're thinking too simply. Even if the mountain guarding formation is opened now, the spiritual qi won't disperse. The reason the spiritual qi is gathered here is mainly because of the celestial luck banner at the highest point of the residence of Nine Supremes. As long as the celestial luck banner is still there, it can't be uprooted nor destroyed. Opening the mountain guarding formation is no better than quenching one's thirst with poison. It's futile." Dong Qiqian closed his eyes and said faintly, "Now we can only depend on each person's own fortune. If we can make it through, we'll have this opportunity and be reborn. If we can't, we'll be reduced to ashes. Of course, it's also possible that we'll have to quit the path of martial arts. This isn't something that can be changed by a mere human." Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang looked even worse as the latter murmured, "Didn't Senior say that we can still save a dozen people if we try our best? With the two of us, we should be able to save more people." Dong Qiqian said calmly, "Since the beginning of time, there's a saying that goes like this: there's no sin one can't endure, there's only blessings one can't enjoy. And the origin of this saying is probably this kind of situation. No matter how difficult and painful the situation is, one can get through it as long as they grit their teeth and don't give up. Even if they can't, they can still take a breather. However, once the fortune is too great, many will die because they can't take it. This is life." Dong Qiqian said faintly, "A person's fate is predetermined." Chapter 1149. Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang were dumbstruck, speechless for a moment. "So that's how it is. Even the both of us are not used to such dense spiritual qi. It feels like going too far is as bad as falling short. How can ordinary people withstand it? How many of the tens of thousands of ordinary disciples can survive after this?" Noticing their worries, Dong Qiqian comforted them timely. "Relax. From what I know about the young ones in the residence of Nine Supremes, there won't be many who can't take it. The children are young, their meridians are relatively tender, but this is the time of their lives when they bear the most burden. Moreover, the residence of Nine Supremes is a tough environment. Even if something happens, there won't be many who will die. 1,000 at most. It's those who are older and have their meridians solidified. This is the toughest stage for them." Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang exchanged a look, reading each other's thoughts. They flew up together and dashed out at top speed. Dong Qiqian sighed and said, "Trying your best is futile. Do you know who can take it and who can't?" Perhaps your help will cause a disciple who should have been reborn from this opportunity to fall into the mundane world and lose any room for improvement. It's the same for the servants. Do you have the ability to send everyone away? Or perhaps you know who to send away? Both of them froze. They stopped where they were, their faces bitter. Yes, who would they help even if they went out? It's better to stay put than to take action in the current situation. The key to whether they can or can't take it lies in the divergence of the critical point. Only they can feel it. Once they reach that point, if they can take it, they'll be reborn and reborn. On the other hand, if they can't take it, their mystical chi will leak out from their dantian and their cultivation path will be gone, or they'll explode and die instantly. Even if you want to help, it'll be too late by then. I've said it just now. This is fate. Since fate has come, we'll fight for our lives if we do what we can. Ping Xueqi and Guanuanyang were stunned once more. Are we just going to watch this happen? Yes, the only thing we can do now is to wait and see what happens. Dong Qiqian said pitifully, "This is the helplessness of life." This was a blessing that was hard to come by for an ordinary person, but it was also a great danger at the same time. You can't deprive them of the opportunity to meet just because of a crisis. Ping Xueqi and Guanuanyang heaved a long sigh into the sky, their hearts filled with complicated emotions. In the distance, a shrill scream came from afar, followed by a mist of blood rising up. That was because someone couldn't bear it and exploded and died. This wail seemed to have triggered a chain reaction. Similar wails rang out one after another. Ping Xueqi and Guanuanyang were drenched in cold sweat. Qian Duo rushed up like a ball with a face full of lingering fear. What happened? What happened? Ping Xueqi briefly explained the situation. Qian Duo, who understood the current situation, was stunned and speechless. Dong Qiqian said, "What all of you should be doing now isn't spacing out or blaming others. You can only let nature take its course when it's beyond your power and you can't take care of it. This is a chance for the three of you as well. All three of you are high-ranking members of the Residence of Nine Supremes. The spiritual chi cleansing this time is also an opportunity for the three of you. Now, make the best use of your time to cultivate in this spiritual chi tide. This time, your progress will be comparable to 10 years of usual cultivation. The three of you, when are you going to wait if you're not going to work hard?" But, Dong Qiqian smiled. "I'll keep an eye on some people for you. Go in peace." This time, the spiritual chi tide surged crazily, and lasted for a whole 7 days. The Residence of Nine Supremes had changed completely during these 7 days. Firstly, many trees grew at an insane speed that could be seen with the naked eye, growing to their strongest state in less than a day. However, they withered quickly and turned into dust. There were also some trees that grew at a relatively slow rate. They grew into towering trees and were fixed there. Many of the flowers and plants withered the moment they were washed by the spiritual chi, but the spiritual herbs were growing and spreading at an insane rate. After 7 days, there were no longer any ordinary weeds or flowers in the Residence of Nine Supremes. Those that were still alive were spiritual herbs, plants, fruits and seedlings. All of them were spiritual roots. None of the beasts in the Residence of Nine Supremes survived the change, all of them dying violently. Some mystical beasts, however, advanced continuously in these 7 days. More than 1,300 of the 2,000 servants in the Residence of Nine Supremes had died after 7 days, while nearly 1,000 of the 10,000 disciples had exploded and died after the spiritual chi tide. In other words, more than 2,000 people in the Residence of Nine Supremes had perished in this event. Compared to those who had died, those who survived had gone through more than 1 round of cleansing. Some of them had even shed more than 1 layer of their skin and hair. Although Dong Qiqian said that it was up to fate, most of his attention was still on the Residence of Nine Supremes residents. The family members of the Demiurge Flawed 10 were basically all here. As the family members of the Demiurge Flawed 10, they naturally had a certain level of cultivation foundation. Coupled with Dong Qiqian's protection, there were no problems and they survived the ordeal. Like Dong Qiqian had said, there was a limit to one's strength. Even Dong Qiqian could not protect everyone in the Residence of Nine Supremes alone. The Residence of Nine Supremes had undergone a complete makeover after this incident, but many people had disappeared forever. Not only did Yun Yang not expect this, even Dong Qiqian, a knowledgeable old demon who had lived for God knows how many years, did not expect this. 7 days later, the residence of 9 Supremes was enveloped in an unusually somber atmosphere. Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang had advanced a level each, ascending to second-class Saint King intermediate level. It was a delightful achievement, but neither of them was overjoyed. After confirming that the spiritual chi tide had ended, they moved all the dead bodies out at once and buried them in a nearby valley. Looking at the giant tombstone, both of them were speechless for a long time. Who would have thought that such a great thing would cause deaths, and so many of them in one go? Both of them sighed. They recalled Dong Qiqian's words, "There is no sin one cannot endure, only blessings one cannot enjoy. We'll deal with it when boss returns." Both of them turned to leave. After the spiritual chi tide, Dong Qiqian examined the remaining disciples of the residence of 9 Supremes again, and was shocked to find that all the disciples who had survived the spiritual chi tide were gifted and could be said to be the cream of the crop. Many of them had even reached the bone foundation level of the top 10 disciples back then. This luck really makes people envious and jealous. Dong Qiqian retracted his mental energy quietly. More than 2,000 people have reached that standard. If I didn't see it with my own eyes and investigate it personally, how can I believe it? Even the East Celestial Palace doesn't have so many genius seedlings with such numbers and talents. Such a situation wouldn't happen with just the spiritual chi tide. This means that the mystical force in the spiritual chi tide has also exerted a stronger effect. But what's the reason? Yun Yang is obviously not here, but it can still activate on its own. The various mysteries of the residence of 9 Supremes. I really can't see through them. As he mumbled to the last sentence, Dong Qiqian could not help feeling amused. He had lived in the residence of 9 Supremes for so long, yet he had not noticed anything. He was speechless. If word got out and those who knew him knew about this, they would probably laugh themselves to death. On the third day after the spiritual chi tide stopped, something happened again. Outside the residence of 9 Supremes, a group of uninvited guests had arrived. With a loud bang, the mountain guarding formation shook from the sudden impact. A ferocious voice followed. "People in the residence of 9 Supremes, listen up. Open the mountain guarding formation as soon as possible and let us in. Everything can be discussed. Otherwise, the mountain guarding formation will be broken and no one will be spared." The 7-star sect had come to seek revenge. Chapter 1150. Dong Qiqian squinted his eyes when he heard the clamor. A hint of delight flashed across his face. F***ck me. Someone's here to look for trouble? Great, great, great. Just in time. I've been so stifled lately that my balls are aching. I've been frustrated with the return of the massive spiritual chi drawn by the middle-class celestial luck banner. My strength is limited and I can't do anything about it. I've been feeling vexed. Now that an ignorant fellow has come knocking on my door to relieve my boredom, how can I not feast on him? It's true that one's strength is limited at times, but my strength is not at all limited compared to most people and things in this world. Everyone else don't move. Do what you should be doing. They're just a few flies. Insignificant. Dong Qiqian said cheerfully, "Xiaoyi and Nuanyang, let's go out and take a look." Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang followed Dong Qiqian out excitedly. Both of them were excited as well. They did not go to the Pentapeak Celestial Luck Banner battle this time and had stayed at home to watch over things. Naturally, they were as idle as Dong Qiqian. Secondly, their cultivation base had improved tremendously after the incident and they were eager to fight a few battles. Thirdly, they knew very well that Dong Qiqian's ability was shockingly powerful, beyond their understanding. Now that his cultivation base had improved tremendously, they still felt that Dong Qiqian's cultivation base was extraordinarily high and beyond their understanding. With such a super powerhouse as their backing, what kind of enemy could they not handle? That was why they only felt the excitement of fighting the enemy. Not a hint of panic, fear, or any other negative emotions. Outside the residence of 9 Supremes Mountain Gate, 7-star sect's leader, Duan Tianchong, stared at the mountain gate with his arms behind his back. Even through the mountain gate's formation, he could still feel the massive amount of spiritual chi within. His eyes were already filled with uncontrollable greed and desire. After the residents of 9 Supremes successfully ascended to the middle-class celestial luck banner, the spiritual chi within the mountain gate is so abundant. It's so much denser than when our mountain gate was at its peak. When the residence of 9 Supremes orthodoxy is wiped out later, perhaps we can consider moving the mountain gate here and set up our sect's defensive formation here. Even if Yun Yang and the rest come back for revenge, we won't have to worry. Wu Yu was also very tempted by the residence of 9 Supremes spiritual qi. Duan Tianchong nodded and said, "Pass down the order. Once we enter later, it's fine to kill and take their lives, but we must do our best not to destroy the facilities." "Right. Remember to leave a few people to interrogate and investigate the background of Yun Yang and the others. Don't kill them all." "Don't worry, sect leader. We'll be careful." At this moment, a mocking voice rang out. "You're just a bunch of thieves who are ignorant and narrow-minded. You can't even break our mountain guarding formation or enter the mountain gate. Yet you're talking about occupying the residence of 9 Supremes territory? Do you think you're worthy?" Upon hearing this, Duan Tianchong and the others snorted coldly and turned their heads to look inside the mountain gate. A vague silhouette quietly appeared. However, under the light of the spiritual energy, the silhouette's appearance could not be seen clearly. What can the residence of 9 Supremes, which has just been established, do? Are the people of the residence of 9 Supremes going to seal their doors for the rest of their lives and never come out? Wu Yu said faintly, "The mountain guarding formation of the residence of 9 Supremes does have some tricks up its sleeves, but it's only because we don't want to destroy it by force. If you open it on your own, we can still spare a few lives on account of this. If you don't know what's good for you and provoke us, there'll be no survivors after we storm in. Think carefully." The person who spoke was none other than Ping Xiaoyi. The vicious physician's cultivation base had suddenly skyrocketed, and he was now at a delicate moment of extreme confidence. He cackled when he heard the words and said, all right, I'd like to see what you lot are capable of to speak so boldly. Aren't all of you afraid that your tongues will be cut by the wind?" As he spoke, he was about to open the mountain gate and rush out to satisfy himself. However, Dong Qiqian, who was beside him, was displeased. It was not that old Dong was displeased with Ping Xiaoyi's recklessness. Of course, it was also because he was displeased with Ping Xiaoyi's action. King Hell, it's rare to have a few people to relieve my boredom. How dare you steal my job? Don't move. Dong Qiqian stopped Ping Xiaoyi with a dark expression. Ping Xiaoyi was speechless. The enemy is right in front of us. How can we be careless? Let this old man do it myself, Dong Qiqian said solemnly. Guanuanyang had already gone into stealth mode, ready to assassinate at any time. According to his judgment, there was no lack of experts among the group, with a few of them having cultivation bases higher than his or Ping Xiaoyi's. But it was not a difficult task for him to kill any one of their strongest experts with their arrogance and condescension, in addition to Guanuanyang's unpredictability. However, when he heard Dong Qiqian say that he would do it himself, he could not help revealing himself at once. You're going to do it yourself? Just these few people in front of you? They're people that even I have the confidence to kill. You're obviously snatching our job. In spite of this, both Guanuanyang and Ping Xiaoyi knew that Dong Qiqian's hostility had been growing stronger recently. The recent change in the spiritual qi tide had made Dong Qiqian exclaim that there was such a change in this world that was beyond his ability. Ever since he was rescued that day, he instantly knew that 4,300 years had passed. Later on, he was so close to his hometown that he did not dare to go back. With great difficulty, he mustered up the courage to go back and take a look, only to discover that his hometown had changed beyond recognition. The small mountain village that his family used to live in had now become a huge canyon. His home used to be on the mountain. Now, it had become a canyon. Had the earth's crust changed with the passage of time? Elder Dong was frustrated, but he had no one to talk about it. Even when Yun Yang asked about it, he could only answer vaguely. During this period of time, he sneaked a look again. It was confirmed that it was not caused by some expert's fight, but by the earth's crust. The other side of the slanting valley was connected to the ocean. The world had truly changed. The consecutive realities made Dong Qiqian feel powerless. Even if he wanted to seek revenge, he did not even have an enemy. Was he supposed to seek revenge from the heavens? He had been suppressing it forcefully for such a long time. It was only when he saw the residence of 9 Supremes young fellows growing like flowers that he felt a little comforted. However, no matter how comforted he was, the depression in his heart was still there, never to be vented. In spite of this, There was nowhere to vent in a wretched place like the residence of 9 Supremes. Who should he look for? Even if it was Yun Yang who had the highest cultivation base, a slap from him would probably leave a human skin on the ground and still be intact. Now that the 7-star sect had come looking for him, it was a welcome rain after a long drought for Dong Qitian. He had finally found a way to vent his frustration. How could he allow Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang to act first and spoil his fun with such a godsend? The people of 7-star sect who were outside the residence of 9 Supremes Mountain Gate waited for a while, hesitating whether to attack the Mountain Gate's formation or not. Suddenly, they saw the thick fog at the Mountain Gate vanish, and then, the Mountain Gate opened abruptly. At the same time, a gush of extremely pure spiritual qi gushed out from the entrance. The 7-star sect members had only taken a whiff before they felt refreshed, as if they had lightened by a few catties. It's a treasured land indeed. The 7-star sect people's hearts were filled with joy. Without any hesitation, they swarmed into the cave. The people in the residence of 9 Supremes are simply too stupid. The mountain guarding formation you've set up at the Mountain Gate is so intricate that it's difficult for us to charge in. Even if we can break it, it'll take a long time. Time is our biggest enemy. If it's delayed until Yun Yang and his men return, it'll be the beginning of our nightmare. Now, however, you've opened it yourself. Do you really think we'll show mercy when we enter? We're just saying it, but there are actually people who believe us. What are they if not fools? We, the 7-star sect, deserve to have this treasured land. It's only a matter of time before we return to the intermediate class of the Celestial Luck Banner, or even advance further. Perhaps, the defeat in the Battle of the Celestial Luck Banner this time was not a nightmare but an opportunity. A great opportunity for the 7-star sect to rise again. Upon entering, one could see auspicious mist everywhere, enshrouded by auspicious clouds, spiritual trees, mystical fruits, and treasures of heaven and earth. On both sides of the road, rows of iron pines towered into the sky, but these iron pines alone could be used as excellent materials for forging divine weapons. But here, they were probably the most common greening plants. What a great place! Duan Tianchong was already fascinated, unable to extricate himself from it. Who would have thought that the residence of 9 Supremes, which had just been promoted to the intermediate class of the Celestial Luck Banner for less than 10 days, would have such an atmosphere? The accompanying disciples were also looking around with excitement. This place. It's great. And why does it occupy such a large area? It's said that the residence of 9 Supremes has just been established, so how did it become such a huge place? Our 7-star sect has been established for tens of thousands of years, but our headquarters is still so small. Look at this place, it's so grand, so classy, so pleasing to the eye, so refreshing. And these will be ours in the future, all for the 7-star sect's use. This place is good, isn't it? A voice came leisurely. Duan Tianchong and the others looked in the direction of the voice, only to see an old man standing in front of them. It was not appropriate to call him an old man. He looked like he was 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old, or even 600 years old. They could not tell how old he was, but he was looking at them with a kind face and spoke with a smile, his attitude extremely amiable. Is this a friendly gesture, hoping that we can be merciful and less bloodthirsty in the future? You're thinking too much, old man. That's right, Duan Tianchong said. And you are. The old man smiled with his eyes squinted. You country bumpkins have never seen such a good place, have you? What? Duan Tianchong was taken aback by this sudden statement. This old man, he said this with a smile and an amiable tone. His mood and the context were completely opposite. It made me feel extremely uncomfortable. What do you think you are? A disciple with a face full of anger loudly shouted. Old thing, who are you? You dare to talk nonsense like this? Do you know who the people in front of you are? The old man chuckled and said, This old man looks down on you because you've just arrived and you look like you've never seen the world before. You don't look like ordinary people, but you actually look like country bumpkins. With one look, I can tell that you're not presentable. As for what kind of people you are, this old man really doesn't care about that. The 7-star sect people. You're just a bunch of country bumpkins bastards. After coming here, you've already lost your sense of direction, right? You're not here to find a prostitute, are you? Looking at your dissatisfied face, this old man's guess is correct. But, you look like a pile of shit, Even if you take the initiative to take off your pants, someone would be interested, right? The old man's face was always full of smiles, but his words were getting more and more vicious. The insulting and vicious words rained down like a barrage of cannons. Before the people in front could digest it, the ones behind them were already more vicious. You old thing. Old B asterisk starred. Old B asterisk starred. The crowd trembled in anger, their words incoherent. A few impulsive ones were about to step forward to beat him up. The old man suddenly turned furious. How dare the few of you form comic ties with me? The crowd. How dare you scold me in front of my face? Dong Qitian hollered, his voice stern. It's already an unpardonable crime for you to insult me. Moreover, you've come here with ill intentions, shouting about killing and wanting to steal our sex foundation for your own use. It's all clear to me that I can't let you go no matter what. As he spoke, his face relaxed again as if he finally found an excuse to attack. He was happy, relaxed, and at ease. Old B asterisk starred, old B asterisk starred, old B asterisk starred, old B asterisk starred. The crowd cursed continuously, each of them so angry that their mouths were twisted. Attack. No rush. We outnumber him. Let's vent our anger by scolding him first. This old B asterisk starred is so infuriating today. How can I vent my anger by killing him? The old man sneered. Good. Now that all of you have scolded me, I can't let you live. Before his voice died away, the old man quietly took a step forward. There was no noise from the ground. There was no movement from the mountain peak either. However, everyone in the Seven Stars sect felt the earth tremble and the mountains shake as if heaven and earth had been turned upside down at this moment. Everything was clearly the same as before, but at this moment, the old man in front of him had completely and utterly transformed into a demon god. 2 as 1 today. Continuing with the infusion. Tomorrow will be the last day of infusion. Tonight's temperature, 37 degrees, has dropped. Hee. Genius. 1 second to remember this website's address. Mobile version. Chapter 1151. The people of Seven Star Sect, on the other hand, were horrified to feel that they were just ants before this old man. Ants that could only be trampled, crushed to death with a finger. An unprecedented pressure that he had never felt before came crashing down. Puff. The group of 20 people from Seven Star Sect, regardless of their cultivation base, had only one feeling. They could not support their bodies as their knees buckled and they fell heavily to the ground. He did not even move, but with his aura alone, he had completely overwhelmed them without the slightest resistance. Regardless of their cultivation base, whether it was Wu Yu, who had the highest cultivation base, or the junior disciples, who had the lowest cultivation base. What kind of cultivation base was this? What kind of cultivation base was this to be able to achieve this? When Duan Tianchong's mind cleared up, he was aghast and panicked. He immediately realized that this time, the Seven Star Sect had kicked an iron plate. The old man in front of him, at the very least, had the cultivation base of a holy master. Residents of 9 Supremes, since you have such an unparalleled expert, you could have exposed it. Why didn't you? As long as you did, the battle for the Celestial Luck Banner would be a joke. Not to mention a middle-class Celestial Luck Banner. Even if you said it would go straight to upper class, no one would say anything. This was an expert who was at least a Supreme Saint. Oh my God, it turns out that encountering the residents of 9 Supremes and losing was not a nightmare, but the beginning of it. No one else could have such an opportunity, but it was the fate of 7 Star Sect's destruction. Senior! Duan Tianchong shouted with all his might. This is a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? I'm scolding you for your own good. It's your fate, your good fortune. However, not only did you not appreciate it, you even dared to scold me. That means you formed a karmic bond with me. How can I ignore the karmic bond? How can my thoughts be clear? Dong Qitian said earnestly. Don't worry, I won't go too far. If each of you takes a palm from me and survives, then so be it. Whether you survive or not, all grudges and karmic bonds will be written off. It's simple, straightforward, and straightforward. Everyone in 7 Stars Sect was drained of all color, a deathly stillness enveloping them. What a good, whether I survive or not, all grudges and karma will be written off. What you're saying is the truth. You're being very honest. The karma of those who survived would be written off, and the karma of those who didn't survive would also be written off. No matter how powerful you are, you can't go to the netherworld to settle the score with us again, can you? But who among us can withstand your palm? From top to bottom, everyone from the Seven-Star sect began to plead and flatter him. It was a pity that Dong Qiqian paid no heed to it at all. He stretched out his hand excitedly, and Wu Yu, who had the highest cultivation base among the Seven-Star sect's people, floated up like a piece of cotton. Unable to move an inch, he floated to Dong Qiqian. Dong Qiqian raised his hand gently, ignoring Wu Yu's pleading gaze as he slapped him lightly. Then, with a loud bang, the top expert of the Seven-Star sect soared into the sky in a spiral shape, passing through the highest point of the residence of Nine Supreme's defensive formation and heading towards the direction of the sun in a slanted manner. His speed was at its peak. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a black dot, a shooting star. Duan Tianchong and the others stared into the distance, their faces filled with sorrow, despair, and frustration. Wu Yu, who was flying at top speed in the sky, had already tried all the secret skills he had learned, but to no avail. Instead, he flew faster and faster, his momentum never slowing down. The force of the slap had only spread from his cheek to his entire body. After flying for a while, he could not even blink his eyes. His entire body had turned into an ice sculpture, and his life had left his body. Dong Qiqian's slap became increasingly high-spirited and enthusiastic, completely ignoring the cries of misunderstanding and mercy, as he grabbed them one by one, giving them a slap. It was loud and crisp. Therefore, people flew into the air one after another, like peerless experts gliding through the air, flying to the faraway shore. Dong Qiqian was like a playboy who never got tired of it, grabbing one by one and sending them flying with a slap. A slap sent them flying again. He was so forceful, so attentive. It was as if he wanted to turn all his worries into nothingness with each slap. It was only when the last person from the Seven-Star sect had turned from a kneeling position into a flying person that Dong Qiqian heaved a long sigh and said, "Satisfying. Satisfying." Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang came out together when they saw that the farce had come to an end, but their faces were pale. "Senior, this." Both of them were truly resentful. It was not easy for them to come looking for trouble. "Both of us are guarding the sect. This is what we do. You call yourself the chief instructor, but you're not actually from our sect. Why are you here to cause trouble? Can't you have some sense of civility and responsibility? The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. Was it not used here?" Dong Qiqian said seriously. These people probably came to occupy the residence of Nine Supremes when Yunyang and the others weren't around, so they couldn't return to their homes. Such people are the most despicable and hateful. The martial world's rule is that one shouldn't bring trouble to one's family. Scoundrels like this who can't defeat others outside but vent their anger in the other party's home for their own selfish desires are the most despicable. Don't let people like this go if you meet them in the future. I'm only doing it out of righteous indignation and to end the karmic ties between us. You don't have to thank me. Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang were exhausted. Of course we understand this logic. Also, how can you tell that we're grateful to you? Elder Dong, we're actually not very concerned about where these people are from. You always say that a small clue can tell a big picture. Just by looking at their extraordinary cultivation base, the one with the highest cultivation base is even higher than both of us, and the resentment in their mouths, it's not difficult to tell that they're from the Celestial Luck Banner sect that lost to the Supreme Leader in the Battle of the Celestial Luck Banner. Guanuanyang was dismayed. But Elder Dong, why did you slap all of them away? You must know that since these people are originally from high-class Celestial Luck Banner sects, they must have a lot of treasures with them. They came to our house looking for trouble and we killed them. All of their belongings are ours. But you just slapped them all away. Ping Xiaoyi was stomping his feet as well. That's right, Elder Dong. Those slaps of yours must have taken away hundreds of millions of wealth at the most conservative estimate. No, it's probably more than that. Dong Qiqian snorted and said, "What are you talking about? Your father did it to end the karmic ties between us. That's your father's personal grudge. What's wrong with that? This is normal. This is how it should be." His voice hadn't finished resounding through the air when he'd already vanished without a trace. These two little bastards. I was the one who helped them solve their problem, but they're blaming me instead. Is there any justice left in this world? Even if your cultivation base has improved and you're capable of dealing with this group of people, how could you do it so cleanly? Good intentions don't go unrewarded. Although I did slap away a huge amount of wealth, I only cared about my own pleasure. But did your father forget? It's just a small matter. Do you have to do this? Somewhere in the distant sky, Gon Tianyan led Jiang Luoluo above the clouds, traveling swiftly through the fog. Master, the residence of 9 Supreme's mountain gate is just beyond this hill. Jiang Luoluo pointed to the front. Unexpectedly, Gon Tianyan's expression changed abruptly. She said in a focused tone, "There's an expert in front." The speed of the person is rarely seen. Sensing that something was amiss, both master and disciple dodged quickly. However, it seemed like it was too late. The person was moving forward in an extremely strange and awkward manner, spiraling at an appalling speed that formed a spatial crack around his body. With unparalleled speed, the newcomer charged head-on towards Gon Tianyan. Gon Tianyan was enraged, her willowy brows raised. "You're so unreasonable." Before he could finish his sentence, the person still didn't waver in the slightest as he brazenly rammed into him. Gon Tianyan took a deep breath and extended both of his hands, grabbing out Rainbow Phoenix Heaven Mending Hand. This was the Phoenix Cry sect's secret technique, and only Gon Tianyan and the sect leader, Ping Zhanyue, could master it. No matter what kind of attack she faced, even if it was a powerful opponent who was a level higher than her, Gon Tianyan could ensure that she would not lose any of the opponent's attacks. The speed of the newcomer's attack was already shockingly fast, but the newcomer's attack was even more strange. He completely ignored the strong resistance of the Rainbow Phoenix Sky Mending Hand and used his head to block Gon Tianyan's hand, then pushed forward with even more force. Gon Tianyan was shocked. What kind of skill is this? What kind of fighting style is this? Gon Tianyan did not know what was going on, so she naturally gathered all her strength and pushed the person with all her might. However, she still felt a chill on her palm. The force coming from the person's head was so strong that she could not help but be pushed back. But this wasn't all that surprising. While the other party's head was forcefully charging forward, it was also constantly spinning against his palm. What kind of strange skill is this? How can the head continuously spin in one direction? Gon Tianyan focused her mind and looked at the person. She saw that the person's long hair was loose, his body was spinning, and his face was occasionally revealed. A pair of dead fish-like eyes stared at Gon Tianyan. "Wu Yu?" Gon Tianyan recognized the person and was so surprised that she almost shouted. When did Wu Yu's cultivation become so strong? And when did he cultivate such a strange skill? While she was thinking, she felt that the person's pushing force seemed to have weakened. Gon Tianyan shouted angrily and grabbed the person's head with one hand. She circulated the power of the heaven and earth cage to the limit, fixing the shackles, and then pushed back. She thought to herself, no matter how strange your skill is, even if the head is a vital point, I will directly crush it. Let's see how you can be fierce then. Unexpectedly, the person's head was grabbed by her and shackled by the power of the heaven and earth cage, but his body was still spinning. In just an instant, Gon Tianyan watched as the person's neck was twisted 17 or 18 times, and then with a snap, it broke on its own. A head was in her hand, and the body actually maintained the spinning momentum, spitting out blood as it fell. What the F***CK? Gon Tianyan, who had been gentle and pleasant all her life and was known as an icy beauty, completely lost control and burst out with vulgarities. Such powerful strength, such terrifying speed, in the end, the person's head spun in her hand? She couldn't help but loosen her grip, and Wu Yu's head fell to the ground. Then, she thought of something and hurriedly reached out to suck the head back. She resisted the nausea and opened her eyes. But she saw that Wu Yu's eyes were still staring like a dead fish, without any luster. Wu Yu? He's actually already dead? Gon Tianyan was shocked again. She loosened her grip, and Wu Yu's head fell weakly to the ground for the second time. Wu Yu was killed long ago, and that person just casually threw his body out. But what kind of expert would be able to cause such a terrifying force? At this moment, Gon Tianyan shuddered with fear and trepidation. There was actually such an expert in this world, and she was already in existence above the clouds. But how much higher and how far was she from the person who made the move? She turned to look and couldn't help but shiver. Where's Luo Luo? Just as she was looking, she saw Jiang Luo Luo fly up from below, holding a space ring in her hand. She looked at it fondly in her hand. Master, Wu Yu is a martial saint after all. There should be some good things in there. The corner of Gong Tianyan's mouth twitched. This money grubber disciple. Do you know the background of the person who killed Wu Yu? You're acting so rashly to take benefits. But before she could say anything, another person in front of her, like a whirlwind, crashed into Gong Tianyan. Gong Tianyan had learned her lesson this time. She didn't use any techniques, but directly used her hand and thick mystical energy to block it. As expected, although the other party's momentum was fierce, the momentum was not enough. After a moment of rotation, his head turned on its own. Just like Wu Yu, he was long dead. When Gong Tianyan saw the face of the person, she was surprised. Duan Tianchong, the #1 expert of the Seven Stars sect, as well as their sect leader, unexpectedly died here, and even their corpses were being kited. However, the surprise was far from over. One by one, the corpses of the Seven Stars sect's experts who went to the 5th layer of heaven to participate in the Celestial Luck Banner contest arrived. Gong Tianyan caught them one by one until she was numb. Jiang Luo Luo was in high spirits. Not only did she receive a lot of space rings, but she also received 2 space bracelets. I'm rich, I'm rich. Jiang Luo Luo was extremely happy. Master, there are a total of 22 space props. Gong Tianyan was speechless. 22 was the number of people who participated in the Celestial Luck Banner contest. In other words, all of them, without exception, were killed. Not only were they killed, they were also kited, and their heads were twisted off by their own hands. What exactly was going on? Chapter 1152. Gong Tianyan was puzzled. What kind of deity had the Seven Star sect offended? These 22 people were the absolute elites of the Seven Star sect. Once they died, the Seven Star sect was basically annihilated. The remaining people would never be able to support the Seven Star sect's foundation. There were the #1 expert, the #2 expert, the #1 elder, the #1 priest, the sect leader, the leading disciple, the head of the enforcement hall, and the core seed disciple. What else could the Seven Star sect have other than these people? What kind of combat power could they have? However, Gong Tianyan could not care less about the Seven Star sect now. She was only thinking about who the hell had the Seven Star sect offended? How could they have suffered such a crushing defeat and be completely annihilated? Jiang Luo Luo stood aside, looking at the cloudy front and murmuring, "The direction they're flying from is the direction of the residence of 9 Supremes." The words were soft. However, in Gong Tianyan's ears, it was like thunder rumbling in the 9 heavens. For a moment, she felt like she was seeing stars. She forced herself to calm down and said with some confusion, "The residence of 9 Supremes? Could it be the residence of 9 Supremes?" Jiang Luo Luo stammered, "I think it should be." Gong Tianyan's eyes went blank for a moment before she said, Yes, the biggest enemy of the residence of 9 Supremes is now the Seven Star sect. As for the other lower-class sects that were defeated by the residence of 9 Supremes, the difference in strength is too great, so they probably won't dare to come. The Seven Star sect has ended their battle long ago and came here. This makes sense, but the main force of the residence of 9 Supremes has not returned. Could it be Yun Yang's master? For a moment, Gong Tianyan thought of this possibility and could not help but break out in a cold sweat. It seemed like this was the only possibility. What was more frightening was that the people of the Seven Star sect did not have a single injury on them, only a palm print on their faces. They were slapped to death and thrown out? What level of cultivation base was this? Looking at the direction of the residence of 9 Supremes in the distance, Gong Tianyan actually hesitated, not knowing if she should go. It was so dangerous. However, even if the situation was unclear and there might be danger ahead, he still had to make a trip there. First of all, Phoenix Cry sect's leader, Ping Zhanyue, had promised Yun Yang that she would assist the residents of 9 Supremes after the Celestial Luck Banner contest. Encountering battles and dangers was expected. At most, it would be a so-called battle in the original plan. The so-called dangers could not really pose a threat. Secondly, the tragic deaths of Duan Tianchong, Wu Yu, and the others from the Seven Star sect came from the direction of the residence of 9 Supremes, which meant that there might be a great ominous person in the residence of 9 Supremes. However, if this great ominous person belonged to the residence of 9 Supremes and annihilated the 7-star sect to protect the residence of 9 Supremes, then this ominous person would not be valid for Gon Tianyen or the Phoenix Cry sect. Instead, it would be a great benefit. Based on these two considerations, Gon Tianyen decided to maintain his original intention and fly straight to the residence of 9 Supremes with Zhang Luoluo. However, he could not help but feel a little uneasy. It did not take long for both of them to arrive at the mountain gate of the residence of 9 Supremes. After reporting their identities, the mountain gate opened immediately and both master and disciple entered smoothly. From the moment they entered, Gon Tianyen immediately lost her composure. Was this the residence of 9 Supremes that had just obtained the celestial luck banner a few days ago? How was this possible? This spiritual atmosphere. It was more than twice as dense as the Phoenix Cry sects. No, perhaps it should be said that the spiritual atmosphere was a few times denser. What was going on here? Who can give me an explanation and clear my doubts? Ah, sister-in-law, you're back. Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang came forward to greet her, exchanging pleasantries and expressing their closeness. Zhang Luoluo was a prominent personage in the residence of 9 Supremes. Other than being the fiancée and future daughter-in-law of Luo Dajiang, the residence of 9 Supremes' third-in-command, she was also the only female representative in the residence of 9 Supremes. After Yun Yang, her words carried a lot of weight. Little E. Nuanyang. How have you been? This is my master. Afraid that both of them would misunderstand, Zhang Luoluo quickly introduced, Boss Yun has won the battle of the Celestial Luck Banner at Mount Pentatir this time. He's shown brilliantly, overcoming all obstacles along the way and finally taking down the 7-star sect that's originally at the bottom of the middle-class Celestial Luck Banner, replacing it and advancing it to a middle-class Celestial Luck Banner. He's also been given the opportunity to further his training at Mount Pentatir, so he'll need some time before he can return. I'm not from the residence of 9 Supremes, so I can't follow him. Overcoming all obstacles like this has also created a hidden danger of making a lot of enemies. My master was worried about me coming back alone, so he came with me to help out. Both of them were quick-witted people. Zhang Luoluo's explanation was enough for both of them to understand. Of course, it was also because Dong Qiqian had analyzed beforehand that Yun Yang and the others must have obtained a higher-level celestial luck banner this time. Both of them had a vague idea of what was going on. There was also the ambush in front of the 7-star sect. Thank you, Senior Gon, for your benevolence. Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang bowed deeply. It was one thing to have the ability to handle it, but it was another when someone else was willing to come and help. Gon Tianyan's willingness to come was a huge favor. Even if he did not contribute, he still had to appreciate it. You're welcome. Gon Tianyan was not in the mood to be courteous now. His eyes had long lost track of where to look. Was this the residence of 9 Supremes? Not to mention that it was a small sect that had not even been established for a year, but with its scale, how could it be considered a small sect? The land it occupied was so vast, almost 10 times that of the Phoenix Cry sect's mountain gate. Not only was it vast, but how could the spiritual qi here be so dense and viscous? Such a spiritual qi atmosphere was so dense that ordinary people would not be able to withstand just one breath. Gon Tianyan casually swept a few glances and was shocked by what she saw. In the soil on both sides of the road, there were traces of tender white plant buds that seemed to be doing their best to burrow out of the soil. There were also countless lush spirit plants that had already stretched out their bodies and were swaying in the wind. Oh my God, those are obviously treasures of heaven and earth. How can they grow so fast? Gon Tianyan looked at the sprouts that were growing all over the place. Although they were still in their nascent stage and had not lived for long, they were all genuine spiritual roots, spiritual plants, spiritual herbs, spiritual sprouts and spiritual sprouts. Not a single one of them was ordinary. Thinking about how the spiritual qi in the residence of 9 Supremes was so abundant, how could these treasures of heaven and earth not grow crazily and grow as time went by? As long as there was a little time, the tens of thousands of acres of land would be filled with spiritual herbs. All of them would be treasures of heaven and earth. Gon Tianyan almost fainted at the thought of this possibility. It was just that Gon Tianyan suddenly understood why the disciples of the Sacred Heart Palace and the Eastern Celestial Palace could improve so quickly in their cultivation base when they came to visit a sect that was on par with her own sect, or even 2 levels lower than her own sect. Although she had known the reason before, She had not been qualified to visit the spiritual herb gardens, their halls and palaces back then. She had not seen the shocking gap in her imagination with her own eyes. Thus it was difficult for her to truly understand it. Now that she had seen the residence of 9 Supremes with her own eyes, Gan Tianyan could only sigh. There's really no comparison. Gan Tianyan instinctively recalled the setup that Yun Yang had made in response to Qi Lai's provocation. Recalling the hateful gazes of the 10 disciples of the residence of 9 Supremes, she sighed deeply again. Qi Lai was doomed. Just as they entered the residence of 9 Supremes' mountain gate, Gan Tianyan was certain that Qi Lai was doomed. It went without saying what kind of improvement those geniuses would have when they cultivated in such an environment. Ping Xueqi and Guanuanyang introduced the environment as they led the way, accompanying Gan Tianyan and her disciple to the direction of the residence of 9 Supremes' main palace. Gan Tianyan was the great elder of the Phoenix Cry sect. He was a high-ranking authority in the sect that was second only to one. Since the relationship between the two sects had improved, Ping Xueqi and Guanuanyang had to treat him with utmost courtesy. The higher the group went, the thicker the spiritual qi became. Gradually, it turned from thick to thick. Have there been any ignorant rascals who came looking for trouble these few days? Gan Tianyan asked. There really hasn't been any. Ping Xueqi thought about it. Trouble? There really wasn't. Even if Elder Dong was here, it wouldn't be considered a problem. Gan Tianyan had obviously misunderstood. Her train of thought had deviated from her original plan. She nodded and said, "That's good, that's good." As they spoke, a group of little girls and boys walked down from the mountain peak in a neat line. Each and every one of them was adorned with pink and jade-like makeup, causing one to be extremely fond of them at first glance. The clothes of this group of children were rather messy, and it was obvious that they had gone through a lot to get here. However, it could also be seen that each of them had tried their best to tidy themselves up, so although the traces were obvious, they did not look too shabby. Some of the children's young faces were still bruised and swollen, but all of them kept a straight face and said nothing. Seeing the group approaching, the group of children moved to the side of the path under their leader's order. They greeted Ping Xueqi and the others with a bow, asking them to go first. The more Gan Tianyan looked at them, the more she liked them. Each of these little fellows is incredible. When I took Luo Luo in as my disciple, she was probably like this, wasn't she? Now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them here. All of them have similar qualities? Gan Tianyan's heart was filled with tenderness when she saw a little girl with tears in her eyes and pouting lips, looking aggrieved. She lowered her head and asked softly, "What's wrong?" The little girl raised her head stubbornly and held back her tears. Her lips were pouting and she did not speak. A strong-looking little boy at the side pouted and said, "What can this be? She lost. It's fine if she can't win, but she still has the cheek to cry. Shameless." The little girl finally could not help but cry. "How am I shameless? I don't want to lose either, but this is the 3rd time I've lost. A momentary loss is just yesterday. Remember your mistakes and don't repeat them again. If you lose today, you can fight back tomorrow. Just win. Know your shame and then be brave. Nothing is better." The little boy leading the group scoffed as he spoke in an adult tone. The corner of his mouth that was swollen from the beating hurt. He grimaced in pain and spat out a mouthful of blood-stained spittle, showing some of his ruthlessness. "Ah." Gan Tianyan was very interested. "You guys got hurt in a fight during training? Your teacher doesn't blame you?" The 20 little fellows looked dejected. "We haven't acknowledged him as our teacher." Sigh. They actually sighed in melancholy. "We fight to acknowledge him as our teacher. How can we be qualified if we don't win? Know your shame and then be brave." "We know our shame now, but we're still not brave enough." Gan Tianyan was shocked again when she heard the childish words. They were a bunch of children with such great potential, but they did not even have the right to acknowledge someone as their teacher? If this was an ordinary sect, or even a lower-class celestial luck banner sect, the higher-ups and elders in the sect would probably snatch them away. Why did they have to fight before they had the right to acknowledge someone as their teacher here? Ping Xueqi interrupted and asked, "Which team do you belong to?" "Sir." These little fellows obviously knew Ping Xueqi. When they answered Ping Xueqi's question, they puffed up their chests and straightened their backs. Their spirits were refreshed as well. "We're the 3rd team of D Unit." Ping Xiaoyi scolded. You're only in D unit. God knows how long it'll take for you to reach A unit. Go back and cultivate well. What's the use of crying and complaining? Yes, sir. Thank you for your teachings. The little fellows walked away with their heads hung low. What's the third team of D unit? Gan Tianyan asked in confusion. What does A unit refer to? With Gan Tianyan's position, it was inappropriate for him to ask about the disciples of another sect like this, but he was too curious. Moreover, the in-laws between the two sects were almost set in stone. Gan Tianyan was also a mother-in-law in the residence of Nine Supremes, and the question did not involve the secrets of the residence of Nine Supremes' cultivation methods or arcane skills. He was merely curious, but not too abrupt. Ping Xiaoyi smiled bitterly and said, It's just a symbol of the disciples' branches. It's easier to differentiate and manage. Gan Tianyan said humbly, I'd like to hear the details. At this moment, another team walked over from the road ahead. When they saw the group, they stopped by the roadside and bowed to greet them. Gan Tianyan asked in a timely manner, Which team are you? The leader of the team was a little girl. She glanced at Gan Tianyan timidly and then at Ping Xiaoyi, hesitation written all over her face. She was speechless for a moment. I'm asking you, just tell me, Ping Xiaoyi said. Yes, sir, the little girl answered crisply. We're B Unit 5th Team. B Unit 5th Team? Gan Tianyan looked over with a frown. Indeed, she realized that this team's disciples were stronger than the team that had just passed by in terms of essence, qi, spirit, cultivation base, and talent. This knowledge made Gan Tianyan's mind whirl. Another thought flashed across her mind, and it was this sudden thought that left her dumbfounded. Could it be that the disciples of A Unit, B Unit, and C Unit are divided according to their cultivation base or talent? Not long after, they met another 30 to 40 teams. They were all lined up neatly and walked in unison. There were C Unit, E Unit, XIN, all the way to GUA. After another round of careful observation and identification, Gan Tianyan's guess was confirmed. A Unit, C Unit, D Unit, J Unit, J Unit, J Unit. The 10 heavenly stems. Gan Tianyan felt that she was already dazzled and distracted. She remembered this website's address in a second. Mobile version, M. Chapter 1153. At the end of the journey, there were finally a few teams of Alpha disciples walking over. Gan Tianyan almost broke down as she tried to identify them again and again. Even a profound cultivator's state of mind was wavering. She tried her best to maintain a poker face, one of her hands already hidden in her sleeve as she pinched her thigh until it was bruised and black. Every single one of these A-rank disciples was at the same level as the 10 disciples that Yun Yang had brought out. Each of them had the looks of a dragon and a phoenix, innate physique, gifted and talented. Each and every one of them. How many were there? There were 30 people in each team of Alpha, and there were 90 such talented youths. How was this possible? Although the sects ranked slightly behind them, in Gan Tianyan's opinion, many of them were clearly too young and their combat strength was relatively weak, which was why they stayed in the sects. Once they were slightly older, they would not pale in comparison to the Alpha disciples. In other words, each of the hundreds of Beta disciples could be called a prodigy in other sects. The hundreds of Alpha geniuses in the residence of 9 Supremes were equivalent to the hundreds of core disciples of other sects' leaders. Such a figure, not to mention a middle-grade sect, even in the East Celestial Palace, would be terrifying to the point of disbelief. Gan Tianyan suddenly felt that she had come to a concentration camp. A concentration camp for geniuses. May I ask why the residence of 9 Supremes classifies the disciples this way? Gan Tianyan asked. To avoid trouble. Guanuanyang said. Senior, you should know that the higher-ups of the residence of 9 Supremes are very few. There are only about 10 of us. How can we have the time to manage and teach so many disciples? Of course we have to compare our methods. Gan Tianyan was speechless. Therefore, this is how we arrange these disciples. Guanuanyang continued. Guanuanyang said, only those who have ascended to the A rank will be taken in as seed disciples, the core disciples of the sect. Only those who are at least B-rank disciples are qualified to become true disciples. Of course, when true disciples improve to a certain level, they can become the core disciples of the sect. Then, C-rank disciples are inner disciples and D-rank disciples are outer disciples. There's no specific classification for those below D rank, they're all menial disciples. Gon Tianyan stared at Guanuanyang's eloquent narration with widened eyes, feeling like there was thunder rumbling in his heart. The shock he felt was much greater than before. Only A-ranked disciples are seed disciples? The B class clearly had so many disciples whose aptitudes and talents were not inferior to the A class. And then the C class inner sect? Ding class outer sect. That little girl from the Ding family just now had extraordinary talent and fighting spirit, but now her position is only a part-time disciple. Gon Tianyan felt as if there was an obstacle in her understanding. She couldn't understand at all. As a senior member of the sect, she naturally understood that there was a limit to a person's energy. No matter how powerful a cultivator was, as a master, he could never teach hundreds or thousands of disciples at the same time. At most, he could only cultivate a limited number of disciples. In terms of the sect's emphasis, it was true that only the seed disciples could be taught and trained by their masters at any time, while the true disciples could only meet their masters in a unified lesson that was held once every few days. After that, the inner disciples, although they had the systematic inheritance of cultivation methods and martial skills, they basically couldn't see their teachers. Only the seed disciples or true disciples were responsible for answering questions, and the rest depended on their own understanding. Although the last disciples were disciples, most of the time, they had to do the logistics work of the sect, and even their normal cultivation time was very limited, not to mention the orthodox teaching. Therefore, the gap between the inherited disciples had always been like heaven and earth, and there was absolutely no such thing as comparing them to each other. Therefore, the residents of Nine Supreme's actions were understandable and there was no room for criticism. However, the current situation was that the residents of Nine Supreme's disciples' talent was too high. Even the disciples from the D class and below were far superior to the disciples from the A class, B class, and C class sects, although they were weaker than the disciples from other sections. The Phoenix Cry sect, for example, was now the chief disciple of a middle-class celestial luck banner sect, but the residents of Nine Supremes could compare to them in terms of the quality of their disciples. Gon Tianyan could not stand the sight of so many super geniuses having no status in the residence of Nine Supremes in the future, not even being able to meet their masters. There was only one thing that Gon Tianyan wanted to say now. It had been on the tip of her tongue for a long time, but she could not stop herself from saying it in the end. What a waste of God's gift! What a waste of God's gift! Ping Xueqi and Guanuanyang pursed their lips at each other. They were well aware of the residents of Nine Supreme's current situation, but this was the only way they could deal with it temporarily. The disciples had to be restrained by the corresponding rules and regulations, or what else could they do? They could not even chase the residents of Nine Supreme's disciples away. The path of cultivation has always been treacherous. Only by going through layers of training and selection can one obtain true gold and jade. The residents of Nine Supremes will pick a day every month to organize a martial competition between the various sections. The winner will be able to enjoy the benefits of leveling up. To put it simply, the strong will rise and the mediocre will fall. Even if you're a genius, as long as you don't work hard, you'll only be a servant in the residence of Nine Supremes in the end. To the residents of Nine Supremes, geniuses are neither important nor valued. Only those who work hard are the targets that everyone in the residence of Nine Supremes pursues. Gon Tianyan was tearing up when she heard Ping Xueqi's final summary. She wanted to say aloud, the Phoenix Cry sect values geniuses. Give us the geniuses that you don't want. We value them, we treasure them, we don't mind taking them all. She was too embarrassed to say it out loud. What difference was there between the Phoenix Cry sect and a garbage collector if she were to say it out loud? Although Gon Tianyan knew that it did not matter even if she had to bear this reputation, the Phoenix Cry sect, the top disciple of the middle-class celestial luck banner, still valued their reputation. This is the Central Peaks Hall, this is the Central Peaks drill ground, this is the Central Peaks. This is the second peak, the third peak. Ping Xueqi introduced them one by one without hiding anything, making Gon Tianyan feel refreshed, especially when she stood at the highest point. The spiritual qi that came whistling towards her filled her with a sense of delight. Luoluo, the residence of Nine Supremes is not bad indeed. You're lucky, you have a better eye. Zhang Luoluo nodded with a happy smile. The residence of 9 Supremes really has a lot of genius disciples. Gon Tianyan had been restless for a long time and could not hold it in any longer. I know what I'm saying, but it's obvious that the residence of 9 Supremes can't take care of so many disciples. Instead of letting so many of them have a bleak future and a hopeless life, perhaps we can distribute some of them. Zhang Luoluo frowned awkwardly. Master, I don't have the final say on this, and it's not something I should say. Guanuanyang's calm voice came from the side. Actually, what you're saying is very kind, Senior. We're happy to see it happen. As long as the disciples you've taken a liking to are willing to join your sect, Senior Gon can take them away. Gon Tianyan was delighted. Are you serious? Absolutely. Guanuanyang said, Senior is our sister-in-law's master, so you're one of us. We shouldn't let our fertile water flow to an outsider. Perhaps, the disciples you've taken a liking to will have a better future than staying here. The only thing is, Senior can't force them, and can't confuse their minds. The disciples must be willing. Of course. Gon Tianyan was relieved and beamed like a flower. I wonder if there's a limit to the number of disciples. If I take a liking to a dozen or 20 disciples and they're still willing to join the Phoenix Cry sect, is your residence really willing to do that? Guanuanyang smiled faintly. To be honest, Senior, there are 9,736 such disciples in the valley not far from here. No matter how many you've taken a liking to, as long as they agree, Senior can take all the disciples who agree to leave at once. What he said seemed very confident, but was he really that confident? Gon Tianyan was a person like her. How could she not guess that Guanuanyang must have something to rely on when he said so? However, looking at Guanuanyang's determined and serious face, she could not bring herself to doubt the authenticity of his words. Very well. I appreciate your residence's generosity. Gon Tianyan was truly moved at this moment. If she had been joking about picking a few disciples to test the waters, then now, she would definitely put it into action. She smiled somewhat mockingly. If your noble family can casually abandon such a genius at any time, it would truly shock me. It's hard to believe. Guanuanyang said faintly. Perhaps Senior is more concerned about the disciples' talents, but my residence values the disciples' loyalty to the residence of 9 Supremes more. If some of them leave with Senior today, it's not certain that they won't leave with others in the future. I really don't care about such disciples. It's just a big wave washing away the sand. Guanuanyang said, Senior, feel free to persuade them. What you say makes sense. It's destined that many of the disciples who stay in the residence of 9 Supremes won't be able to get enough quality resources. It's not impossible for them to become the core disciples of other sections. To them, it's a good thing. Over the next few days, Gon Tianyan was too embarrassed to trick the little fellow she had taken a liking to in the beginning. However, as time went by, the more she looked at them, the more she liked them. The more she looked at them, the more she was tempted. What was out of Gon Tianyan's expectation was that these little fellows' answers dealt a heavy blow to her even after she had asked them. I don't want to leave the residence of 9 Supremes. I'll stay here. I'm not going anywhere. Not going. It's good to stay here even if I can only be an outer disciple. I don't understand other places. That's right. You can stay here even if you're an errand boy. Isn't that great? Gon Tianyan asked dozens of people in disbelief. She had even purposely sought out the little fellows who were slightly less talented, but the final result was still the same. No one was willing to go with her. All the disciples' choices were the same. They would rather be an errand boy in the residence of 9 Supremes than go to another sect to be a seed disciple. Many of the disciples were so determined that they would live and die as members of the residence of 9 Supremes. Gon Tianyan could only feel frustrated in the face of such an answer. You little fellows have all been brainwashed. Gon Tianyan, who had tried many times, could only sigh sadly. She could only say that she had come at the wrong time. Her persuasion, trickery, and even bewitchment would only make choices that were more beneficial to them if they were adults who knew how to weigh the gains and losses. In spite of this, all her attempts were futile when she was faced with a bunch of children. She had said that it was good to go there, that they could become core disciples there, but they had blinked their big, cute eyes, obviously not knowing what a core disciple was. There were only 4 words deeply rooted in their little hearts. The residence of 9 Supremes was good. Then they were, "This is the best place. There's nowhere better than here. I'm not going anywhere." Gan Tianyan was filled with melancholy in the face of such a situation, while Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang were rather speechless. To be fair, the residents of 9 Supremes had too many disciples now. They could not take care of all of them. If this went on, there would definitely be people who would be delayed. It was not an excuse for Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang to agree to Gan Tianyan's request. In spite of this, these little fellows were actually so resolute. Both of them were surprised and helpless. After several failed attempts of enticement, Gan Tianyan sighed and stopped trying to persuade them. It would be futile to try again now, and it would be a disgrace to her own reputation and position. Everything else would have to wait for Yunyang's return and for her sect leader's junior sister to come and negotiate with Yunyang and the other leaders. In the days that followed, Gan Tianyan and Zhang Luoluo stayed in almost every drill ground in the residence of 9 Supremes. In the beginning, watching the children practice, correcting their movements and answering their questions, they were all gifted and talented disciples who could understand with just a hint. Even though it was a little tough, they were willing to endure it. However, as the situation continued, Gan Tianyan truly understood what Guanuanyang meant when he said that he could not take care of all of them. There were indeed too many. Despite Gan Tianyan's level of cultivation base, it was easy for her to instruct these children. However, when there were so many of them, the change in quantity had turned into a qualitative change. There were so many that she could not take care of them all. There were a few drill grounds in the residence of 9 Supremes that occupied dozens of acres of land. The progress of each disciple was different. Naturally, there were no disciples who were completely at the same pace. To other sects, perhaps they were more troubled by not being able to find good talents to groom and train, but to the residents of 9 Supremes, it was the sheer number of geniuses that troubled them. One by one, the little fellows trained and competed in martial arts. They were all exceptionally serious, fully focused, and neat. Their little faces were solemn. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. Over the past few days, apart from guiding many children in their cultivation, Gan Tianyan had only said these few words. He had not said anything else. Zhang Luoluo had secretly rolled her eyes countless times. Dong Qiqian, who was hidden on the higher floor, looked at Gan Tianyan coldly, sneering inwardly. "Ignorant woman. You only know that it's not bad. Humph. Actually, you won't be able to tell what's really not bad with your knowledge and experience. Your cultivation base is too low after all, and your vision is too shallow." Dong Qiqian sighed. So many people had come and gone, but he was the only one who had the unique insight. Chapter 1154. Watching Gan Tianyan's futile attempts to persuade the children to join the Phoenix Cry sect, Dong Qiqian could only roll his eyes to express his disdain. Poach? How? During the time these children had been admitted to the residence of 9 Supremes, other things aside, they had been completely brainwashed. The residents of 9 Supremes had rescued them from their most difficult days. This sentiment could not be swayed with mere words. Poach, I'll consider it your win if you can poach one. You're good. However, now that this girl is here to watch these children practice and give them pointers, this old man is much more relaxed. Speaking of which, now that there's someone working, shouldn't I go out and have some fun? There shouldn't be any ignorant fellows coming to attack in a short period of time. Even if someone did, with Ping Xiaoyi and Guanuanyang guarding and Gan Tianyan and Zhang Luoluo accompanying them, ordinary sects would not be able to do anything to them. Indeed, he could go out and have a walk without any worries. On Yunyang's side, it was already the 3rd day since he had entered the demonic realm. In these 3 days, Yunyang had encountered a total of 13 battles. In each of these 13 battles, the mystical beasts he had to face were a level stronger than Wu Yu and the others outside. Basically, Yunyang had to give it his all in each battle, even activating all his trump cards and exhausting both his mystical chi and the endless divine art. Only then could he defeat the enemy and win by a hair's breadth. In the first few rounds, he had to perform the first 5 styles of Destiny Blade at least 17 to 18 times to be able to handle it. In the outside world, there were not many people who could force him to use all 5 styles. However, this was not the scariest part. After Yunyang killed the first beast, the subsequent beasts that came after him had increased their strength exponentially, becoming more and more difficult to deal with than the last. As he stayed longer, Yun-yang realized that the demonic realm did not seem to be any different from the outside world. There were mountains, forests, and valleys as far as the eye could see, and there were endless beasts. Other than that, there were many treasures of heaven and earth that grew everywhere. Delighted at the prospect, Yun-yang naturally tried to pluck them or teleport them away to see if he could bring them out. Originally, he thought that the existence of this realm was meant to test cultivators, and everything in this kind of space was mostly illusory. In other words, everything he saw now was not real. This understanding seemed to be more in line with what he had seen. After all, the heaven and earth treasures that could be seen everywhere were not only in shocking numbers, but their age was even more shocking as well. How could Yun-yang dare to believe a dozen or 20 stalks of 10,000-year-old spiritual plants so easily? Trying to pick, collect, and teleport was just a precaution. However, after coming into contact with the spiritual herb, the extremely realistic touch and fragrance made Yun-yang think about it. He decided to try eating a few of them, and he could clearly feel the surging medicinal power in his body. These spiritual plants are real. In other words, maybe we can take them out? Yun-yang looked at the stalk of lingji in his hand that was crimson in color and exuding a unique fragrance, deep in thought. The spiritual plant in Yun-yang's hand was a stalk of cloud Ganoderma. As its name suggested, this lingji was not like the commonly seen species that was hard. Instead, it was soft all over, as if it was weightless to the touch. It felt almost weightless when held in his hand. In fact, this kind of lingji was a dream item among the spiritual plants. Yun-yang had been searching for it for a long time, asking the General Commerce League for help but to no avail. Never would he have thought that he would find one not long after entering the demonic spiritual realm. Of course, the first thing that came into his hands was to digest the good stuff. Yun-yang ate 2 stalks of cloud Ganoderma and felt the abundant medicinal power flowing in his meridians. The authenticity of the spiritual plant was confirmed once again. It was edible. It was useful. Then, did it mean that he could bring it back as well? Therefore, wherever Yun-yang passed by, the raiders of all but God's elegance of plucking the feathers of a swallow as it passed by reappeared once more. Along the way, there was nothing that this leader Yun did not want as long as it was a spiritual plant. Even the piece of land where the cloud Ganoderma grew was kept into his deific consciousness space by leader Yun alone. This was probably what it meant to be swept clean. Just then, a gust of demonic wind blew, and another demonic beast appeared in front of Yun-yang. Yun-yang was already used to this. Without a word, he charged forward with his saber. With a loud clang, the demonic beast roared and blocked the divine edge with its claw. Then, it pounced forward and launched a fierce counterattack. This one is a notch stronger than the previous one. It's indeed linked to my current highest combat power, no less. Yun-yang wanted to cry but had no tears to shed. Since entering this place, other than the first demonic beast that was slightly weaker, the beasts that came after that were stronger than the previous one. Moreover, the beasts that came to attack were all stuck at the level of their peak combat power. Such a situation naturally formed a result. One could win against the demonic beast, but to truly win, one must not go all out. One must exhaust all one's strength and only take down the beast when one's strength was exhausted. It was the same every time. One must exhaust every ounce of strength in one's body to be able to kill the opponent. On the third day, the situation continued to develop in a bad direction. Now, it was no longer a matter of exhausting one's strength to defeat the opponent, but one needed to make a reasonable distribution of one's strength to pass the stage. Only by using the strength that should be used in the right place could one kill the demonic beast. Any slight carelessness would cause the situation to take a turn for the worse, to the point where one would lose control. After that, one could only retreat in defeat. For example, you should have used a little more strength to slash the demonic beast and cause it to be seriously injured. However, you retracted that strength in preparation for a sneak attack from the demonic beast. Then, you would fall into a disadvantageous position in this battle because you used less strength. Then, the disadvantageous position would turn into a defeat. Once that happened, it would be out of control, and you might even be completely defeated. Yes, it was this precise, this extreme, there was no room for error. After the first demon beast, the strength of every demon beast was at a very awkward and delicate point. Although you have the strength to defeat this demon beast, you have to be extremely cautious and serious in the battle. You have to work hard to accurately adjust your own Xian Qi. Only then can you kill the opponent. Any slight negligence would cause the situation to go out of control, and one would lose. Yun-yang felt like he was a piece of sword embryo, and the endless beasts were like a sledgehammer hammering him continuously, hammering out all the impurities in his body. Every battle was a process of exhausting all of one's strength. Resting after the battle could restore all the lost strength in a very short period of time, and there would also be a small increase, like a 100-foot pole going a step further. Yun-yang's cultivation base, under these small increments, had successfully crossed the beginner second-grade Saint King to the intermediate level in just a few days. It was a remarkable speed. However, the demonic beasts he encountered were also getting stronger and stronger as Yun-yang improved. I understand now. This realm is truly a holy land for cultivation. The demonic beasts in this realm will become stronger as the cultivators become stronger, forming a virtuous cycle. The cultivators who enter this realm will improve at a godly speed in a relatively short period of time, advancing at a tremendous pace. As long as you fight with all your might and win, it's equivalent to breaking through a small limit, and you'll also get the most direct training in cultivation. This has long been evident in the small increment of cultivation base after each killing of a demonic beast. These small increments, when accumulated, will be the most frightening yet most gratifying progress. Even the barrier of a realm will hardly be an obstacle in such a cultivation atmosphere. Yun-yang was pleasantly surprised as he had an epiphany. I really don't know who set up such a marvelous realm, to be able to construct such a precise and incredible arrangement that is actually just right. No matter what situation the cultivators are in, they can adjust themselves accordingly. Such an arrangement is truly ingenious and unimaginable. Such an arrangement is a great opportunity for all of us in the residence of 9 Supremes to improve ourselves greatly. Dancing on the tip of a blade at every moment, hovering between life and death. As long as we can bear the burden, as long as our fighting spirit and will are not destroyed, we'll be able to cultivate further and improve at every moment. It's a perfect fit for the Demiurge Flawed 10 and the others who are known for their willpower. The only pity now is that I can't contact Wuchen and the others. I can't meet anyone here at all. It's like I'm alone in this realm. I only hope that those little fellows don't forget my usual teachings and fight the demonic beasts with the most positive attitude. Yun-yang closed his eyes, making use of the gap he had just gained from killing the demonic beasts to adjust his breath and recover. According to his experience, the next wave of demonic beasts should come in 2 hours. Since he had entered this place, including the one just now, Yun-yang had gone through 14 battles and gained a total of 11 demonic beast skins, 17 complete demonic beast tendons, 11 demonic pills, and various materials from the demonic beasts. Despite Yun-yang's cautiousness and the many trump cards he had, there were still 3 demonic beasts that had withstood Yun-yang's divine will, and escaped, dragging their wounded bodies away. As the saying went, one could infer the general trend from one small clue. The difficulty of fighting the demonic beasts here was evident. After Yun-yang finished regulating his breathing, he realized that there was still some time before the attack of the demonic beasts, but he did not hesitate to sit still. He crossed the bamboo forest and crossed the river to the other side of the river, where he saw a small tree swaying in the wind. The small tree looked as if it was carved out of white jade, and the leaves on it were purple in color. There was only one fruit on the top of the tree, and it was golden and eye-catching. Was that the golden vein fruit? The golden vein fruit was an extremely rare spiritual fruit in the bound of universe. Its effect was different from most of the treasures of heaven and earth. Compared to most treasures of heaven and earth that could increase the cultivation base of the consumer, this fruit would double the flexibility of the consumer's meridians and mental strength after consumption. Its effect was amazing. It was definitely a good thing. Yun-yang took a deep breath and did not choose to fly over to pluck it immediately. Instead, he stopped and observed the surroundings carefully. According to the lessons learned from the past few times, Yun-yang could be sure that there must be powerful demonic beasts protecting such treasures of heaven and earth. In other words, when the treasures of heaven and earth were found, it was equivalent to entering the rhythm of battle. If greed blinded one's mind for even a moment, one would fall into a hopeless situation in the blink of an eye. Although he did not know if he would really die here, the spiritual materials in this place were real, and so were the remains of the demonic beasts. Why would death not be real? Yun-yang looked around and abruptly swung his saber. A gust of wind from his saber shot into the calm river. The next moment, the surface of the river surged and waves shot out from the water like snow-white arrows. Then something that looked like a fish, a cow, a horse, a snake, but not a snake, sprang out of the water. Its two large eyes were glinting menacingly as it stared at Yun Yang. Yun Yang's heart skipped a beat when he saw the monster. He frowned as he pondered. It was another fellow that he did not know. The monster charged forward, howling. Yun Yang went up to meet it with a thoughtful expression. Just like before, he fought back and forth, slowly searching for the opponent's weakness. He was neither impatient nor impatient, fighting steadily and surely. The battle lasted for a full 4 hours. Yun Yang's last slash shone brightly. The moment the monster's head was chopped off, his last breath of energy was exhausted. He fell to the ground, trembling uncontrollably. It's still the same. Yun Yang used this battle to completely prove his previous thoughts. These demonic beasts were indeed maintained at the same level of his pinnacle combat power under some kind of restriction in this space. In other words, in this realm, he had to break through a limit in every battle to have the hope of defeating his next opponent. Furthermore, the standard of his combat power was set based on the skills he had displayed. The battle prowess he had displayed included his movement techniques, footwork, saber techniques, sword techniques, mystical chi, the power of the endless divine art, and even the sharpness of the blade of heaven's will. Everything had been accounted for. In other words, if he lost the divine edge or any of the above, he would not be a match for these demonic beasts. Amazing! Really extreme. The only word that could be used to describe the accuracy of Yun Yang's perception and judgment of this space was terrifyingly poor. After this battle, even you yourself may not feel that your battle strength is a little stronger than before. However, when you meet the demonic beasts again, they have already calculated the slight increase in your strength. You can only kill the demonic beasts when you're on the brink of death. Yun Yang's condition was dire. He really did not have much energy left, causing half of his body to lie in the water, panting heavily. It was only after a long while that he had the strength to move, but the first thing he did was to regulate his breathing. After about an hour, Yun Yang, who had finished his recuperation, stood up and walked over to pluck the gold vein fruit, keeping it in his hands. As soon as the golden vein fruit was plucked, the white jade-like tree trunk withered rapidly and turned into powder in an instant. Only the fruit fell into Yun Yang's hands. With a single thought, Yun Yang had already sent the fruit into his deific consciousness space. Although the gold vein fruit was rare and its effect was remarkable, it was still better to send it into his deific consciousness space to see if Emmy could cultivate it in the long run. After all, there was only one fruit. If he ate it directly, there would be no more. Ayaya! Emmy's pliable vines caught the gold mahogany fruit, beaming with delight. If one were to say who had gained the most since entering this mysterious space, it would undoubtedly be Emmy. Countless amounts of demonic beasts' flesh, countless amounts of demonic beasts' inner elixirs, and countless years of treasured resources. All of them had entered the deific consciousness space. As soon as the flesh entered the space, it was buried by Emmy on the spot, grumbling incessantly. It meant, "You should have sent all these things in the first moment you killed them. Why did you stay outside for so long? So much of the essence in the flesh has been wasted, do you know?" Yun Yang was speechless upon hearing this. "Big brother, I'm still a human. There will be times when I'm exhausted. Do you know how much energy I used to kill those demonic beasts? I'm really exhausted." On the other side, Xueqi, Luo Dajiang, and the others had also swiftly deduced the mystery of this trial journey with their rich martial world experience. Everyone's eyes were shining, their bodies filled with endless energy. Although they were exhausted after each battle, they could not wait to immediately enter the next cycle after killing a demonic beast. After all, the spiritual chi here was abundant, comparable to that of an upper-class sect. Basically, they were in a state of recovery and improvement at all times. It had only been 5 days, but Luo Dajiang could already feel a significant improvement in his cultivation base. Initially, he would need at least 6 hours to recover his energy after his cultivation base was exhausted. But after coming to this realm and cultivating several times, he only needed less than 4 hours to recover. This was evidence of the improvement of his cultivation base and the improvement of his self-recovery ability. This knowledge made him even more motivated. The Demiurge Flawed Ten's cultivation base was similar, their life experiences were similar, and their fighting spirit and determination were similar as well. Luo Dajiang's gain was similar to that of others like Xueqi, Ren Qingquang, and Lan Ruojuan. They were pleasantly surprised and devoted themselves to killing the mystical beasts. Compared to Yun Yang, Shi Wuchen, and the other senior masters of the Residence of Nine Supremes who had improved their cultivation base by leaps and bounds, the disciples who were not with their masters and were fighting on their own seemed to be in a miserable state. Yun Xiuxin was startled by the first demonic beast she encountered after entering the realm. Despite her fear, the little girl did not panic and managed to stabilize herself. It took her a whole day to fight the beast with all her might before she finally killed it. When it came to the second beast, it still took her a whole morning. Although the efficiency was not low, with Yun Xiuxin's cultivation base, it was by no means fast. In the next 6 days, the little girl only killed a total of 4 demonic beasts. During this period, she even made a mistake and was chased by a demonic beast for a long time. It was a very miserable experience. However, after a series of battles, the little girl slowly figured out the pattern. In the beginning, after killing the demonic beasts, she only focused on recuperating and guarding against the subsequent attacks of the demonic beasts. She no longer paid attention to the beasts that she had killed. However, when she killed a mystical beast, she accidentally found a demonic beast's inner core. Only then did she realize that the demonic beasts she encountered were real, and the inner core was even more real. Naturally, she would not let it go. If the inner core of the demonic beast was real, then the heaven and earth treasures she saw along the way were naturally real as well. Regardless of whether they were useful or not, and whether she knew them or not, she just stuffed them all into her spatial ring. It was already an exhilarating honor to kill the demonic beasts that were traveling side by side with her own strength. Now, she could even collect so many heaven and earth treasures. It was wonderful. Wonderful. It felt so good. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.